Welcome to another reaction stream, and this may seem a bit complicated, but as always, we always do the reaction streams straight after all the matches are done. So we are reacting to the Game Week 5 matches and looking ahead to the Game Week 6 deadline. There is still going to be the Game Week 6 deadline stream tomorrow, so don't worry about that. Unfortunately, there might not be kind of a reaction stream for Game Week 7, looking ahead to Game Week 7 on the Sunday, but I'll try to maybe get that out on Monday. We've got a lot of content around the last few days. This is pretty much a triple upload today, with the F1 Fantasy video, the FPL Transfer Tips video, and this as well. And I wanted to mix this reaction stream with the best wildcard team so you can have an input into what you think the best wildcard team is, because I think there are maybe a few pieces that I could improve on when building the best wildcard, and it's a very popular kind of thing going on in the last few weeks and months. But let's go for all your questions. Everything should be running very smoothly. My software has the latest update and it's running natively on my laptop, so it should all be very good. Oh yeah, I can see what you guys mean, like kind of living, I'm basically already in Game Week 7. Yeah, this isn't the deadline stream sync, don't worry about that. Welcome AJDC. Yeah, I can see what you mean, Harry, but as I always do that, I put the game week that's coming up for the reaction stream title, but it's nothing to worry about. Welcome Jeff, good to see you here. 91 points, that's really nice. Jeff is going to win FPL this year. It's definitely possible, of course. Anyone else holding Rodrigo? Transfer creates a benching headache for me. In that case, I can understand doing that, and I probably would keep him. But to be honest, though, you can still go to someone like Gross, and having the squad depth isn't always necessarily a bad thing. But having benching headaches, if you already got some this week, and getting rid of Rodrigo will add another one, then I can understand that. 66 to known Haaland, Captain Gundogan. Yeah, that is obviously a bit of pill to swallow. I think everyone at this point just wants to get Haaland and permanently captain him. 64 says Lucy. Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference, I think, between those that captain maybe one of Salah or Haaland and those that maybe went with someone else. To be fair, most of the popular options this week delivered. Kane, Jesus, etc. Just not to the same extent. Haaland or Salah captain? If you think Haaland's going to start, I would captain him. I think he's going to score more points compared to Salah whenever they get a similar amount of minutes. But I think even if Haaland starts, he'll come off early once again. He's not going to play 90 every single game, especially with 3 games in a week. My prediction was that he'd start against Forest and be benched against Villa. Now I'm maybe leaning towards another start, but I'm still not convinced. He's my captain just to kind of take the risk yet again. And even in 30 minutes, I could see him getting a haul. That's the way I see it. Hey Dylan, who should I go for out of Botman or Dan Burn? I'd still rather go for Botman. It was very surprising not to see him or Fabian Schär in the lineup for Newcastle. They already had a lot of absentees, but they still put in a good game. Has Pep said anything interesting? There was one interesting comment, actually, now that you remind me, Jeff. So he said that Haaland, because they were asking about rotation and stuff like that, and he said he's 22, not 32. So kind of implying that, well, he can play the majority of the minutes and the games. But with Pep, it's always a conundrum, The comments from the week, what was it, 2 weeks ago, last week maybe, he was talking about, he's basically implying that Haaland could be rested. He can't play every 3 days. So who knows what's going on with Pep, and he could be trolling us yet again. Made the bold/genius move from Rodrigo to Harrison. Leeds fixtures too good to avoid. Yeah, the fixtures are very good, but maybe I'd be a bit concerned about them possibly declining a little bit. I don't see them maintaining the same level from the first 3 game weeks, but the fixtures are there, and Leeds are still a decent team. Hi Dylan, what do you think about Isaac? So obviously the man in the thumbnail. Isaac was very impressive against Liverpool, I'm not going to deny that, and probably very unlucky not to get that brace. But I still am more convinced by Mitrovic and Tony in the long term. However, if you're looking to wildcard very soon, which a lot of us are, then you could maybe just go for Isaac as a punt. But I still wouldn't be completely convinced. In terms of attacking returns in Real Sociedad, he wasn't that impressive. He's a good player overall. And, the finishing that we saw against Liverpool is very encouraging. But I'd still rather go for Mitrovic. Thank you, Ruler2. I appreciate it. I'm doing well, Tezza. What about you? Welcome, Connor and Jeff, Sophronis as well. So yeah, that question's already answered. That's all good. Thoughts on Robbo plus Mount plus the silver to Trippier, Zaha, Martinelli for a -4 hit? I actually like it. I think Mount could maybe see an upturn in terms of form, especially with the fixtures turning for Chelsea and also the signings. Aubameyang should be in the squad in a few weeks. He's going to obviously recover from the broken jaw. And Chelsea have made so many signings across the board. They should be better. But yeah, I think the -4 is worth it, to be fair. Sidintra puts his team. Raya, Trent, Walker, Williams, Dunk, Salah, Martinelli, Rodrigo, Kane, Jesus, Haaland captain. To be honest, it's quite simple, I think. The main sell is Rodrigo because he's injured. Your team's in fine shape, to be fair. One that I don't like too much is Kyle Walker. I don't think he's a great FPL asset. Even if he gets the starts, you're really relying on the clean sheets. And Raya isn't my favourite goalkeeper. I'd still rather go for Sanchez, despite Raya having better fixtures. And also Nick Pope from now on, I'd say. My team is the best team, but if Sally hasn't scored max points, then maybe it isn't the best team. May I know which one is better, Diaz and Estupiñán or Trippier and Zaha? I like both of them, but I think it's a clear winner. Trippier and Zaha sounds much better, especially for the next few game weeks, despite Zaha having some pretty tough fixtures, Melvin. So I'd go for the second one. And yeah, transferring out Rodrigo and Robertson. Just bear in mind with Robertson, because I've also got rid of him this week. He could definitely do a really good job against Everton and Wolves. You know, two really good fixtures coming up from a defensive point of view. But I still like having Mitrovic and these other options compared to Robertson right now. Ronaldo instead of Salah, no chance. Ronaldo's not even starting matches. He might against Arsenal. I wouldn't be surprised. But I wouldn't go for Ronaldo right now. Dylan, you said to captain Salah instead of Haaland. I did it and got 66 points. I'm not necessarily sure I did that, mate. I went with Haaland myself, and my point was, if you think Haaland's going to start, then go for it. If not, then don't captain him. That's as simple as that. I never told people to captain Haaland over Salah, or vice versa, really. It's just down to your opinion. How's your fantasy team looking? Well, I've actually got a team selection video recorded today. That should be out on Sunday, but you can check out my updated draft. So that was what it was looking like, but I've made a few changes since then. Hi Dylan, I have two transfers. Is that Perisic to Fofana and Rodrigo to Zaha? I'm not a huge fan of Fofana. Obviously, at 4.4 million, a Chelsea defender could be exceptional value, but I still would rather go for Cucurella or James because of the attacking threat. Rodrigo to Zaha looks like a great move. If you need to do Perisic to Fofana to upgrade Perisic to Zaha, then fair enough, or should I say Rodrigo. However, I still would rather go for a few other defenders compared to Fofana around the same price. For example, Saliba. Saliba or Andreas to play. This week, I think I'd go for Saliba still. Welcome, Canal. What do you think about Stones as a one-week punt? I think as a one-week punt, it could turn out well, but I'm not a big fan of these one-week punts. I think I'd rather go elsewhere. Welcome, Pat. Cucurella versus Estupiñán. Who will get the clean sheet? I think that's a tough one. Cucurella might be a bit more likely, but either way, I'm not a huge fan of either of them. I would rather cover Brighton's defence with Sanchez and also Chelsea's defence with Reece James. Yeah, thinking of captaining Haaland again, I mean, it's understandable. The only big issue is if he's going to start or not. That's really what we're going to be talking about. Will Isaac play? He suffered from a dead leg. He should be fine. I wouldn't be expecting him to be benched. And also, Callum Wilson's still out, and I think they need Isaac. Wildcard Essentials, we're going to be talking about that very soon. Price predictions on Alba and Zakaria. Well, Aubameyang's price has already been revealed. He's 9 million. So it's an interesting price, but since signing the contract for Arsenal, he had a really poor record. I think it was 13 goals in 45 games or 44. Before the contract was signed, he had a very good record. And look, he did a good job at Barcelona, but I'm not too sure about that. I need to see how he kind of beds in first, and I still think there's better strikers around. Sell Son or keep? I'd sell him. I talked about this in the transfer tips video. If you want, check that out. I talk about it in detail. What do you think about Creswell from Game Week 7? I don't like West Ham defensively. And the only assets I'm really considering, I mean, well, at this moment in time, probably no one. But yeah, for me, Creswell's an avoid right now, despite the fixtures turning soon. If I have KDB, should I take a -4 or move to Haaland? I think KDB will start this week. It's not worth taking a -4 to go to Haaland. Neto now out, Gross in. I already have Dunk. Your thoughts? I mean, Neto's been so frustrating. I thought he'd do something against Bournemouth, but I still got rid of him regardless, and he didn't even do anything. So I would do that. I think Gross is a good transfer still. Should I get rid of Walker or Diaz for Trippier? I'd rather get rid of Walker. Rodrigo to Gross or Trossard or Zaha. They're all good choices, but I'd rather go for Zaha, to be honest. Trossard's a nice one. Gross as well, but Zaha's my pick if you have the money. Thank you, Jay, for the shout-out. Is it a must to buy James this week? I wouldn't say it's a must, but in a few weeks' time, Chelsea have some great fixtures, so you're kind of buying in advance, really. Yeah, like I said, Omar, I'd sell Son. You can check out the transfer tips video, and you'll see my in-depth response. Trippier or Gabriel for this week? Trippier, for sure. Already have Jesus and Haaland, says Joao. I'm wildcarding this week. Should I replace Diaz for Zaha to get a forward? So I would do that, yeah. I would have had Zaha anyway. I think he's a better option than Diaz, and I'd go for Mitrovic despite the fixtures. Isaac is not a bad choice, though. I won't deny that. Is the honeymoon period going to end for Arsenal? Or are you guys going to be Leicester 2.0? Leicester 2.0, I mean, it's a completely different kind of conversation. Arsenal have spent a lot of money in the last few years, and Arsenal, you know, they always have the expectation to challenge for titles. Leicester never have that, so it's a completely different story. I think Arsenal will do well this season, but they're not going to be challenging for the league, especially with the injuries. You know, Thomas Partey out, it's a big blow. Even the replacement for El Neni is out for even longer. So I would expect actually United to get a point or maybe even all 3 points against Arsenal this weekend, but I still think Arsenal will do a good job this season. Play Saliba or Nico Williams. I still would rather go for Saliba, but I'm not expecting a clean sheet for either team. Would you sell Perisic for Estupiñán? I mean, it's a tricky one with Perisic. I'm not even sure if he's going to start. If he does and you sell him, you will be kicking yourself, but Perisic is actually a good player to have in the long term. If you have the cover, I would keep Perisic for sure because he's a really good long-term player, just not in the short term. Isaac or Tony? It's a tough one. I think for the next 3 or 4, I'd rather go for Isaac, but in the long term, it's still Tony. Tony is my preference. I have a bit more faith in him as an FPL asset, and that's where my answer would be. What to do with Robertson? Any thoughts? He's still worth keeping for the next 2 game weeks, but if you can make a significant upgrade up front, for example, then I would sell, which is what I've done for my team. So let's now go into my team selection very briefly. You can check out my team selection video to just see all of my explanations about my thought process. I know a lot of people seemed a bit skeptical about what I've done, but I've basically got rid of Robertson and Archer for a -4 hit for Kieran Trippier and Mitrovic, despite Mitrovic having a kind of difficult set of games coming up, but I like the Chelsea fixture. It might be a bit tougher now with all the signings Chelsea have made, and they might be boosted, but I still think Mitrovic can do a great job there, and I like him beyond that with some very good fixtures for Fulham. But let's now go into the wildcard team. This is kind of a rough one. I'd love to have Zaha, for example, in the midfield, but it would need a sacrifice, and probably in the defence you're looking at. But Mitrovic, Jesus and Haaland looks like the best forward line for me right now, but there's still Tony and Isaac who are also looking pretty promising, and Aubameyang has been added to the game. He's 9 million. That should be an interesting one. Not sure what Zakaria is. I think I'll check that very quickly. Yeah, he's 5 million. He's not someone I'd really consider in FPL anyway. Henderson or Sanchez? Sanchez for me. Should I captain Pope? I'd never captain a goalkeeper in FPL, honestly, unless it's a double game week and he's the only one. But yeah. Sir, I'm new and I've done more than 5 transfers. What can I do now to save the points? Please tell me. As FPL Hawk says, you can free hit or wildcard to cancel out the hits. But yeah, be careful with that. Play Walker out Williams this week. I wouldn't transfer Walker out for Williams this week. And let me just deal with the spammers, by the way. I think it's a troll. Hold Rodrigo. He's not going to be fit. I talked about this in my transfer tips. He's going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks, so he's going to return after the international break. So sell Rodrigo. Unless it's going to cause some benching headaches and you don't really need to make the transfer, then fair enough, but I'd sell him in most cases. I didn't think I'm going to take a hit this week and still keep in Robbo. I don't think that's a bad idea, to be fair. Need a goalkeeper, midfielder and forward, liking the look of Newcastle, Forest and Brighton. Yep, that's fair enough. Goalkeeper, Sanchez is my favourite, but another one is Nick Pope. I really like him. Midfielder, I like Zaha, despite the fixtures. On forward, it has to be Mitrovic or Isaac. If, you know, you're a bit unsure because of the fixtures, then go for Isaac or Tony. You know, they're good options. But yeah, I think that kind of narrows it down for you. Gross or Trossard? Right now it's Gross. I think in the long term, Trossard is the better pick, though. But I think for the next 5 game weeks, which is what you probably want, Gross is my answer. Captain Trent or Cancelo? This week, it would be probably Trent, actually. I'm a bit more confident of a start there. Will Haaland start game week 6? I can't tell you that for sure. My gut feeling is that he will. But my feelings before the Forest game was that he would start against Forest, and even then I wasn't completely sure, and that he'd be benched against Villa. When is the benching going to happen? It's really difficult to tell. Logically, it would be now in game week 6, so it's going to be a risky captaincy regardless. Back 4, Robertson, Trent, Cancelo and Zinchenko, good? It is, but Zinchenko hasn't been training yet with Arsenal, so I'd be very concerned about him starting. I thought he'd start or be available at least against Aston Villa, maybe be on the bench, but not even that, so he is the big concern there. I'd look to sell Zinchenko. You could go to Trippier. Easy switch. Perisic to Saliba for a hit. I wouldn't do it for a hit, personally. Especially if you have Andres Pereira or someone like that who can fill in. They could even get an attack in return. Who knows? So I wouldn't do it for a hit. I don't think Saliba or Arsenal will get a clean sheet this week. Salah for Sterling and Alba. I'd be very careful about getting in Aubameyang right now, especially because he's not available this weekend because he's got the broken jaw. He suffered a robbery. Obviously, condolences to his family. He should be recovered in a few weeks, but right now is not the time to get him. And Sterling's a nice one. You know, he's looking pretty good, but I still prefer Salah. Buy Haaland or hold Kane? Well, I'd still hold Kane because I would have a few doubts in my mind about Haaland starting, and I don't think it's worth the switch. Then again, I said that last week. Long term, Haaland is the better player for me, better FPL asset, so you could do that, but maybe now is a bit of an awkward time to do it. What to do with Rodrigo? Sell. He's going to be out for a few weeks. And by the time he's back, you know, you would have missed out on a lot of points, maybe in other areas. You know, players like Zaha could do very well. I'm going to go Perisic to Trippier next week. That's fair enough. He does face West Ham next week, Trippier, but that looks fine. Welcome, Antoine. Robertson, Rodrigo, Taylor to Emerson, Gross, Isaac for Game Week 6. Thoughts? 2 free transfers. That looks good. So a -4 hit for that. Doesn't look too bad for me, but Emerson's a bit of an awkward one. I'd rather go to Trippier because Spurs have some very tough fixtures coming up, and Emerson could be rotated because they have the Champions League midweek. So Gross and Isaac, really good. Not so sure about Emerson. Buy Foden or hold Gundogan? I'd hold Gundogan. Zaha or Gross? I'd rather go for Zaha if you have the money, but both of them are fine options. Hi Dylan, is Walker a sell? He played 90 and might be prioritised in UCL. I think he's a sell regardless. It might be, you know, if he starts against Villa, he'll probably get a clean sheet, but I still think he's a sell, and long term you'll benefit from that move. Yeah, I think it is a bit of a risk against Villa, and I'm not sure what Pep is thinking. Is Sergio Gomez going to start in the Champions League, or maybe this week, and Walker is going to be the first choice right back per se? But either way, I think he's a sell. Do you think Salah is able to compete with Haaland in the scorer struggle? I think Haaland, if he stays fit, I think he's winning the Golden Boot easily. The only ones who could maybe contend with him are Salah and Kane on paper. Honestly, though, right now, I'd say no. Never underestimate Salah, though. I will say that. Bench Jesus and play Andreas this week. Look, you know what? People might look at what you're saying and think you're stupid. I think that's actually not a bad idea. And hear me out. Let's actually bring this screen on screen. So look at this record for Gabriel Jesus. You might be very surprised by this, but I mentioned it in recent videos. This is his record against Man United. He has never scored or assisted against them in 11 matches, and he's also got more losses than wins. So this is pretty surprising. He played for City, by the way, and I'm actually considering, I know I might sound very stupid, to bench him for Cucurella this week. I don't think it's a bad idea, mate, but over Andres Pereira is facing Tottenham, I would still start Jesus with the form he's in. But when it's compared to someone like Cucurella, who you might back for a clean sheet, that's where it becomes a bit more difficult, and I'm actually considering that. But yeah, I wouldn't bench him for Andres Pereira, honestly. By the way, thank you to everyone for tuning in today. I know it's kind of short notice, you could say. I was discussing the possibility yesterday in the community post, so thank you to everyone who voted. If you haven't already, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. I got the wrong screen, by the way, but yeah, Rodrigo's a sell. I know a lot of people asked me about that today, and yeah, that kind of answers most of your questions. He's going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks. Let's now go back to the best wildcard team, and I want to see your input. What would you change with this? Maybe the goalkeeper. I think some of you would disagree on Mitrovic. I think you'd go for Isaac. Be very interested to see your thoughts, and be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's get this video to over 200 likes, and we're very close to 13,000 subscribers. Be sure to join the deadline stream tomorrow. It's going to be very early. So, yeah, you're going to have a lot of live stream content within the next, what, I can't even count, really, 14, 16 hours. So there you go. Shave Dylan, yeah, I hate shaving, honestly, but it had to be done. It had to be done. My moustache was a mess. I can't even call it that. Captain Salah or Haaland? I think they're both great options. Haaland, for me, if he gets the minutes, is even better. But that's the problem. Salah's going to be more nailed. You know he's going to start. With Haaland, you don't have that certainty. I was a bit more sure, and even then I wasn't completely convinced that Haaland would start against Forest. And then my thought heading into game week 6, or 5 should I say, is that he would be benched against Aston Villa. So let's wait and see. Buy Reece James or stay with Harry Maguire? You know the answer to that question. What do you think of Zinchenko to Walker? I wouldn't do that. I'd rather go to Trippier. I don't think Walker is a player to bring in. I'd actually sell him if you have him. Yeah, I agree, Alex. I wouldn't go for him. Yeah, I'm going to deal with these spammers. So 1 second. I'm trying to go through all the questions. Look, it's not necessarily that Walker's a horrible option. He's not completely bad, but I think there are much better. You've got Cucurella around the same price. You'll play more games, probably get more assists and goal contributions. You've also got Trippier. I just don't think Walker is the City defender to go to. I'd rather go for Cancelo for a few extra millions. No worries, Jared. Thank you very much. No, I'm not playing the wildcard, Mickey. I'm happy with my team. I've taken a -4, and yeah. Yeah, I'm going to do the deadline stream, Jared, yeah. And yeah, like you said, I already answered that. That's fine. Yeah, sorry. Any questions that are going to be spammed or any comments aren't going to be read out. Sorry, but there's no point going through them. One free transfer, Rodrigo to Zaha, say Maximan or Perisic to Trippier. I have a Stupinian to cover Perisic this week. Good question. I think Rodrigo to Zaha. I really like Zaha right now. I talked about him in the transfer tips, not only this week, but also a few weeks ago. Perisic to Trippier is a good move as well, but I think there's a bit more upside Rodrigo to Zaha, and Rodrigo's missing out anyway in the next few weeks. And yeah, you've got Stupinian anyway to cover. I'd do that move. James or Trippier, I would rather go for James long-term anyway. If you already have Pope, then you could consider another defender like Saliba, but now is a bit of an awkward time to go for him. Do you think Odegaard will play? I believe so, but then again, it all depends on if he's fit, and we just don't know that yet. Start Dunk or Walker? I'd go for Walker, just in case he starts. I think City have a better chance of a clean sheet. Yeah, thank you, Liam. I appreciate it. Saliba or Andreas? This week I'd go for Saliba. Start Veltman or Walker? I'd go for Walker. Gabriel or Cucurella to Trippier? I'd rather get rid of Gabriel. He does have goal threat, but I think Cucurella is the better option long-term, and Arsenal's fixtures do turn very soon. Nico Williams is just a budget option to sit on your bench. I'm not really a big fan of him. I think he offers good value, but he's not someone I'd want to start most weeks. Already have James. Start one of Cucurella and Estupinian. Good question. I think Estupinian in that case, but it's really close. Really, really close. Someone mentioned Emerson. It could possibly be West Ham's Emerson, not Tottenham's. Fair enough, yeah. 4 million Emerson, you know, that could be something to look at. Yeah, that's fair enough. Emerson Real I wouldn't go near, but thanks for the correction marker. Emma City Predictor just put Haaland at 94% of starting. Is Haaland now a must captain? Look, the predictions, and I think I gave them a shout out the other day, you know, they're worth looking at, but do not base your transfers or your captaincy decisions on that, because they also thought that De Bruyne would start, and so did I, so did everyone. Pep is so difficult to predict. They get the majority of things right. And look, if you ask me, if you put a gun to my head, hopefully you don't, and you say, is Haaland going to start? I'd probably say yes if I had to say something, but I still wouldn't be completely convinced. I'm going for him as the captain anyway, just in case he starts, because I think he could do absolute damage. So I don't think he's a must captain because he's still risky. But if Haaland starts, for me, he's going to be the best captain yet again. Is De Bruyne a good option against Spurs? Yes, obviously we're looking a bit further down the road for that, but he is a good option still. Spurs tend to give them problems, but City, I think this season, are a different beast with Haaland, and you'd back them to win the game finally, but let's wait and see. And De Bruyne is a good option, always, even against Spurs. Perisic to Williams, and then Bailey for Martinelli. That looks good, to be fair. A good set of transfers, and ultimately you're improving your team. So I'd say yes. But Perisic in the long term is a great, great player to have. It's just in the next few weeks, it's a bit of an awkward one. In terms of when I'm applying to Wildcard, I'm not kind of settled on it yet. But Game Week 9, around that time period, is when I'm going to start to consider it. And I could even activate it. But let's wait and see. Archer to Mitrovic and Perisic to Saliba. I do that. I've done something very similar this week. Dippish, I think it looks great. Thank you, Cole. Thank you very much. Wildcard for the break. That's why Game Week 9 looks very appealing, and there's also some fixture swings, Nicholas. So, yeah, I think it's a good time to play it, but it might not be necessarily the right time to play it for everyone. You know, not everyone's team is the same. And hopefully you don't. Yeah, Alex, I don't know what I was thinking, to be honest. Will Odegaard play? I believe so, but it all depends on if he's fit or not, and we don't know that, but I believe he will. Hi Dylan, can you answer? Keep or sell Ramsdale for Pope? For Ramsdale going to be fit? Once again, it's a bit similar to the Odegaard question. We just don't know yet. There is a chance that Odegaard, Ramsdale could be out for a few weeks, but I think he's going to be fit for that game against United, and Arsenal need him. Otherwise, they're in even massive trouble there. But I think Ramsdale to Pope is a good move anyway. I think Ramsdale's ceiling is too low. What is your starter team? For this wildcard, for this week, it'd be Sanchez in goal. I would bench Saliba and I'd play the other four defenders, James, Trent, Cancelo, Trippier. I would play the three midfielders, Martinelli, Gross and Salah, and then the three forwards, even though Mitrovic is playing Tottenham. In terms of my team, which is different, this is my starting 11. For those of you that might be wondering, what are these kits? How do you have the away kits? It's the Chrome extension. So type in FPL away kits Chrome extension and you will find it. Your thoughts on Son? I'm very surprised by his start to the season. His underlying numbers are awful. He looks a shadow of his former self. I think he will recover his level, but it will take some time, and I think it's a good time to sell. Even though he faces City, who he tends to do very well against, I just think the ceiling is lower in the next few games, and he hasn't been doing it when he has had the good fixtures. Son is a sell for me. Yeah, City predictors on Twitter have Haaland at 93% and Walker at 82% to start. Yeah, my concern really with Walker is in the long term. I just don't think he's a great FPL asset. But if I had him, I would start him over most defenders in the game in this game week. So what should I do with Zinchenko, hold or sell? Well, based on what we've heard from Mikel Arteta today, I would sell because it looks like he hasn't trained with the team and the chances of him starting against United are quite slim right now. Sell Salah and Tony to get Haaland. It depends which striker, or should I say which midfielder you also get for Salah. I wouldn't be undoing your team for someone who could still yet be benched, Haaland. Obviously, he is the best option in the game right now, but be very careful with that. I'd say no. Dylan, would you start Botman or Aronson? I'd probably say Aronson. It's a close one, though. Rodrigo to Harrison or another one? Another one's Aronson, and one that I like even more is Gross, but they're all good options. Rodrigo and Jesus out for Mitrovic and Zaha. I think Jesus will do well against Everton and Brentford, but probably blank against United. As a duo, Mitrovic and Zaha is better, no doubt about it. So if you need to do Jesus to Mitrovic in order to fund Zaha in for Rodrigo, then I'd go ahead with it. But just bear in mind, you might be undone in game week 7 to 8. Say Maximan or Zaha? Zaha easily for me. Would you bring in Trossard instead of Gross as a differential? Only if you think Trossard will do as good of a job, if not better. Don't just get him in just because he's a differential. I think for the next few game weeks, Gross is better. So that would be my answer. But in the long term, I don't think you're necessarily wrong because Trossard is typically a better FPL option. White or Cucurella? It'd be Cucurella. Start Harrison or Veltman? It'd be Harrison. You captaining Salah or Haaland or someone else? I'm going for Haaland right now. Thank you, Fia. I appreciate it. Start Martinelli or Nico? I'd still go for Martinelli. 2 free transfers, 2 million in the bank. Zaha for Rodrigo or Diaz? I'd rather go for Zaha. And Robertson to another defender? It'd be Trippier. Wilson Bailey downgrade to Andreas to get some money in the bank. I think Andreas is a better option anyway, and he's easier to bench Rafe, so that looks good to me. I wouldn't do it for a hit, though, or something ridiculous like that, and I wouldn't start Andreas this week. Gross or Andreas? Gross. Andreas is someone I like a lot in terms of having him on my bench. Thank you, Karaki, for the shout-out. I appreciate it. Who do you prefer, Perisic or Estupiñán? Long-term is Perisic. Let me make that very clear. But I don't think Perisic will start this week against Fulham. By the way, let me know if you lot want to see the predicted lineups on screen that have been mentioned in the chat. So let's wait and see. Thank you, Ayab. I appreciate that. So yeah, we've got over 200 people watching. Let's try to get this video to over 200 likes. We've almost got 300 people, so I really appreciate it on such short notice. There's a lot of you interacting with the channel recently, so thank you very much. And we're very close to 13,000. I'm not sure exactly how many now. I think we're less than 300 away, by the way. Yeah, 250. So if you are new around here, consider subscribing. There's UCL Fantasy and F1 Fantasy content on top of all the FPL stuff that has been going on. Today has been a triple upload. This is technically the triple upload. So yeah, we've also got the deadline stream tomorrow, the UCL Fantasy team selection on Sunday, and then the reaction stream I'll try to get out, the next one, maybe around Monday. But if not, there's going to be much more content regardless. Thoughts on Neto, sell or hold? He's a sell. The same, I said it last week, I said it weeks before. He's a sell. Any news on Saint-Maximin? As far as I'm aware, there's no news on Saint-Maximin, but even if he's fit, I'm not a big fan of him FPL-wise. He's a good player, of course. And yeah, Bruno Guimaraes should be back fairly soon, but Newcastle assets, the ones that I really like are Pope, Trippier, a 4-point million defender, although I'm a bit, less keen on them right now. And then Wilson when he's back, and Isaac. I'm not really a big fan of the rest. Dawson Almiron, I'm not a big fan of him as well, even less so than Saint-Maximin. I know he's 5 million, but I'd rather just go to Andres Pereira, to be honest. They messed up the pricing so much. Trent 8.5, James 7, Haaland 12.5, Martinelli 7, Saliba 5 million, Jesus 9. No, I agree with that, Rula. I probably think most of your pricing is bang on, to be fair. I like Walker at 5 million, actually, because it gives you a bit of a headache, but the rest I completely agree with. Luis Diaz or Diaz? To start this week, it would be still Luis Diaz. Yep, okay, fair enough. I'll bring up the predicted lineups very shortly. Start Nico or Estupiñán? I'd go for Estupiñán this week. Sell Diaz? I'm not sure if I'd sell him. I like him for the next 2 games, for example. But I've always said, despite the fact that he's probably the second best or the best 8 million midfielder right now, I would still rather go to Zaha, Rodrigo until he got injured, and Gross. I just think there are better midfielders out there. And the 8 million midfielders haven't really been as impressive as I thought. But Diaz, I'll give him credit, has done even better than I expected for the opening portion of the season. I wouldn't sell him. Diaz or Maddison? I prefer Maddison still, but Leicester are awful. Absolutely awful. Should I take the risk captaining Haaland? Obviously, it's completely up to you. I'm taking the risk right now, and you'll see in the deadline stream tomorrow if I end up doing it. But I did it last week. It paid off, and I think I'm going to do the same thing again, to be honest. Yeah, I agree. I was looking at Henderson versus Pope, Havertz Stupinian, mid-game week versus Gross versus Zaha versus Sinistera. I'm guessing that wasn't mid-game week. And Isaac versus Mitrovic versus Tony. I mean, they're all great options, but Zaha and Mitrovic are my favourites from those that you mentioned. Which 2 should I start? Have Robertson, Nico Williams, or Harrison? Don't bench Robertson. I'd start him, and it'd be Harrison. Thoughts on Bernardo Silva? You know, in the last 3 games, he's done an incredible job. He's a fantastic player. I'm not convinced about him long term because he did something identical last season. You know, he went 3-5 games in a row, producing returns. We all got him in, and he was absolute rubbish. That's not to say he definitely will do it again, because with Haaland now in the team, you could argue he's an even better FPL option than he was in the years gone by. But I'm still not completely convinced by Bernardo, and I think in the long term there are better choices like Zaha. Sell Saliba? No, I wouldn't sell him. I'd bench him against United and then start him in the next 2 games. Say Maximin or Zaha? Zaha, mate, easy. Rodrigo to Zaha or downgrade for Tony, Mitrovic, Isaac? Really good question. I think it's tough because you can make a genuine case for any one of those 4 options you mentioned, Zaha, all those forwards. My preference right now is Mitrovic, but then you look at the fixtures. If you're going to wildcard very soon, you could argue Isaac is the very best. You know, he's got some fantastic games coming up. But you're asking me, I'm going for Mitrovic or Zaha. Take your pick there. I'd start Perisic just in case he, you know, starts the game, but I don't think he will. Why that heavy bench? It's because I took the -4, and Cucurella is someone I'm looking to maybe sell in the long term. I want to see how Chelsea do in the next few game weeks, and once Chelsea's fixtures turn, I will make a final decision about keeping Cucurella or selling. Yes, I'm not a big fan of benching Cucurella this week. I'm even considering the possibility of benching a really big hitter like Jesus, because he has an awful record against United, but that's really risky, of course, and I think I'll end up going for this starting 11, but that's just the way my team is, to be honest. Walker to Trippier or Roll? It's a really good question. I'd still go ahead with the move. I'd go for Trippier, but Walker has a decent chance of starting. It's a really tough one. It's a really tough one. I think in the long term, he's not completely nailed. Wildcard this game week, not for me. But if you want kind of a wildcard team for this week, which obviously isn't the title of the video, this is something I'd go for. An alternative is maybe downgrading the defense and also trying to stretch to Zaha in the midfield, which I'd really love. I know some of you might have the money for something like this, but let's show it as an example. I still like Gross, by the way, but if you can stretch to it, having Zaha on top of a Mitrovic. But what would you do here? Would you maybe go from Saliba all the way down to Nico Williams? I think some of you would be able to afford this. So let me know your thoughts on this wildcard team. Most weeks, or pretty much every single week, you'd start James, Trent, Cancelo, Trippier, Zaha, Martinelli, Salah, and then Haaland, Mitrovic, and Jesus. But I will say, I don't think Salah is absolutely essential because he's 13 million. And with Haaland now in the game, he's not really going to be a captaincy option most weeks. So you could consider going for Sterling, maybe. You know, that's something that I would start to warm up to. Despite me saying he's a skip a few weeks ago, I've been very impressed by him, but I still think Chelsea are a dysfunctional team right now. So let's see how all these new signings gel. Should be very, very interesting one to monitor. Hi, mate. Should I transfer Ramsdale? It depends who you bring in, but I like Sanchez and Pope more. And I don't think Ramsdale's ceiling is that high. Your team is pretty strong. Do you think you could bench boost within the next few weeks? To be fair, I could, and get out of the way and not think about it. That's a really good suggestion, Harry. Maybe it's something I'm going to consider. I didn't think about it before, but there still might be better opportunities with the double game weeks and stuff, which never work out for me, but, you know, you never know. Trippier's not injured. He was flagged heading into the Liverpool game, but he started and he did a good job. Is Perisic not going to start against Fulham? I'm not going to tell you, you know, yes or no. Like, I don't know that for sure. But my gut feeling is that he's not going to start against Fulham. Perisic to Trippier for a hit. I think if you have a decent cover on the bench, Sonny, I wouldn't do it. So even Andres Pereira, even though I wouldn't start him this week in most cases, but rather than taking a hit, because you really need Trippier to get an attack and return or a clean sheet to justify that. And even then, you don't earn too much unless Trippier has a massive haul. So I try to avoid the hit if possible. Let's now go into the predicted lineup. So let me bring it on screen. And once again, we're going to give a shout out to that Twitter page. It's a really good one to follow. And we're going to kind of analyze, we'll discuss it. I want to see your thoughts as well, because you may disagree. It's not going to be set in stone. Just because they predict someone to start, it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it tends to be, you know, quite accurate. So let's bring this up, and here we go. So Emma's page, be sure to give it a follow. It's a really good one. And here we go. So let's bring this up. So the Man City predicted lineup versus Villa. They're going to do an update tomorrow, it says. So Ederson, Cancelo, Stones, Diaz, and Walker is their predicted backline. Rodri, KDB, Silva, Gundogan, Foden, Haaland. That is their starting lineup. So that's pretty interesting, actually. So I'm guessing, therefore, is that Foden's going to be on the left, Bernardo Silva being deployed on the right wing, which has happened this season, KDB, Rodri, and also Gundogan midfield, Haaland up front, with Alvarez being on the bench. And to be honest, Alvarez got the full 90 in Game Week 5, so I could see that happening. And if you were to ask me, I'd probably agree with the vast majority, if not all, of their selections in terms of their predicted lineup. It looks pretty solid to me. Haaland being at such a high percentage of predicted start is obviously very encouraging, and it makes those looking to maybe go for Salah captaincy, or those without Haaland completely, you know, very, very nervous, I'd say. Let's see the other predicted lineup. So this is Man United. I don't think many of us would be that interested, but De Gea, Varane, Dalot, Martinez, Casemiro, Malacia, yeah. Who else do we have there? Eriksen, Fernandes, Rashford, Sancho. Yeah, I mean, that looks pretty fine to me. Yeah, I mean, not much more to comment on, really. Liverpool, Alisson, Trent, Robertson, Van Dijk, Gomez, Fabinho, Milner, Elliott, Salah, Firmino, Diaz, no surprises. I think that's kind of one we can all agree on. Spurs, so Perisic, yeah, 37%. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think that's a good kind of predicted lineup there for Spurs. If you want me to go back to a team, by the way, then let me know. What about Diaz? In terms of starting, yeah, he should start. I do prefer other, or should I say midfielders, for cheaper prices. But around 8 million, Diaz is top 2 right now. Ronaldo super sub. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Who would have thought that heading into this season? Yeah, Rafe. Neto replacements, around the same price. Aronson is a great one. And if you can stretch to a little bit more, Gross is my favourite. Thoughts on Lingard or Gibbs-White? Their next 3 fixtures look good. I think Lingard would be the one I'd look at, but even then, I'm not expecting too much from an FPL perspective. Morgan Gibbs-White played a few good passes in the games that I've been watching Forest, but he's not someone I would ever consider, I think, in FPL. Not right now, anyway. If I get Zaha, should I bench Nico or Dunk for Game Week 7? I'd rather bench Nico. I know a lot of people will be looking to start him this week, but I'm not really that convinced. Yeah, the best wildcard team was on screen just beforehand. Now I'm going to put it again very soon. Son benched. I mean, let's see this. So yeah, they are predicting a Son benching. It's possible, you know, he's off form. They might be resting him for the Champions League, and Richarlison deserves a start. So I'm not sure if he will be benched. You know, it's 50-50, but it's a possibility. You know, it's definitely there. I don't think it's a bad prediction. Chelsea, this is an interesting one as well. Mendy, Cucurella, Koulibaly, James. We've also got Colwill as well. Thiago Silva, Jorginho. We've also got Mount, Sterling, and it's kind of a mixture between Kovacic and Havertz. But yeah, I mean, most of those you can agree with. It's a pretty interesting set of predictions, and let's wait and see how they turn out to be. But Perisic being benched will obviously be a big blow for those that brought him in last week to replace James, and those that have had him for a long time anyway. Arsenal predicted lineup: Ramsdale, yeah, if he's fit, he's obviously going to start. Tomiyasu, Saliba. Wow, that's interesting, actually. Tomiyasu to start and White on the bench. I'm guessing the early benching for Ben White is why they've gone ahead with that, but I'm not too sure about that one. I think White hasn't really done anything wrong. He's been very good. Even against Villa, he had a good game. So I think I disagree with that one. Gabriel, Tierney, Lokonga. Yeah, I mean, Arsenal don't really have another alternative. If Zinchenko was fit, then Zinchenko could play midfield and Tierney plays as the left back, but I don't think Zinchenko will start this weekend. So I agree with that. Lokonga, Xhaka, Odegaard, yeah. Assuming Odegaard is fit, he should start. Saka, Martinelli, Jesus. So no surprises unless one of Odegaard or Ramsdale has a severe injury, just like Thomas Partey and El Neni. And there you go. That's it. So the big one is here. Erling Haaland. Sorry, let me bring up again before we go to another screen. Erling Haaland at 94% chance of starting. So, yeah, very, very big news. You could say. It's just a prediction. Take it with a pinch of salt. Welcome, Mohammed. I'm doing well. What about you? Isaac or Nunez on a wild card? I'd actually rather go for Isaac, to be fair. Will Cucurella start? It's just my opinion. I think he will. I mean, it'd be quite surprising if he wasn't starting, but yeah. Dylan, which deadline transfer is in your watch list? I mean, I've already made my transfers, so yeah. One transfer I'm looking to make in the next few weeks, especially if Chelsea continue to look very poor defensively, is Cucurella to Saliba. Or maybe go to a 4-point family defender like Ben White, unless he suddenly drops to the bench. But let's now go back to my team. But before we do that, actually, let's show you a few more screens. So we've got the predicted points here. Harry Kane, top of the list with 8.3 predicted points. Salah second with 8.2. Son third in 8.2. Then you've got Trent, Diaz, Johnson, Sterling, James, Tony, De Bruyne. I'm guessing Haaland's a bit lower down because the algorithm doesn't predict him to start, but if he starts, I think Haaland's at the very top. Then you've got Neto. I mean, I disagree with that completely. But yeah, Jimenez could be good. I think he's got a great record against Southampton. But then again, I think he had a great record against Bournemouth. He scored in like every single game he started against them. The same with Salah, and they both blanked. So there you go. Fixture ticker, really a nice one to look at. So I can see why a lot of you are looking to start Nico Williams this week. Bournemouth home is a really nice one, and some great fixtures after that. I'm not really a big fan of the other Nottingham Forest assets, to be fair, apart from Dean Henderson. Bournemouth have some great games. Newcastle, and that's why I'm recommending Trippier a lot. And Isaac could be a great third forward for your team. Tony is still worth keeping. I'm not sure why people are just suddenly jumping off him to Mitrovic. I do prefer Mitrovic, don't get me wrong, but would I get rid of Tony for Mitrovic, especially for a hit? No chance. Arsenal's fixtures turn very soon. That's why they're in the bottom 5, you could see, in the fixture ticker over the next 5 and 6 game weeks. The same goes for Man City, and Liverpool are bottom with Chelsea, Arsenal and Man City making up 3 of the next 6 games. So that's very interesting to see. But the other thing I want to show you very quickly, and another thing that we've been talking about a lot recently, is Mitrovic and Isaac, and also Ivan Toney. I still prefer Mitrovic. Obviously, it's just one game sample to compare both of them. Isaac looked very impressive. Very unlucky not to have his brace stand. Arguably, he was onside, but Mitrovic, for me, is an absolute goal machine. I think he's got 48 goals in his last 48 league games. I would go for him, despite having Tottenham and Chelsea up next. I'm a bit concerned, obviously, with all the signings Chelsea are making. They do look stronger on paper, but hopefully Mitrovic can undo them, and I think he can, to be honest. It's still a fixture to target right now, but let's wait and see how Chelsea do in Game Week 6, because maybe Isaac is the forward to go to around this price. But now let's go back to my team, or should we say the best wildcard team, which a lot of you are interested in. I'd go for something like this. You may not be able to afford it, and in that case, you can always make a compromise, but this looks like a very solid draft. Having Zaha and Mitrovic in there looks great. Then again, though, both of them have some pretty tough fixtures coming up, so maybe not ideal for some of you. Yeah, Saint-Maximin is slept on. Honestly, I don't like him as an FPL option, so maybe I am sleeping on him, but I prefer Isaac, and I also prefer going for Trippier and Nick Pope to cover Newcastle. Do you think Isaac will start the next game? I believe so. He's got a dead leg, but he should be fine. Let's wait and see, though. Yeah, Mitrovic's stats are incredible. I mean, look, that's just one game week, by the way. If you want, I can go back. I talked about this in the transfer tips video. I mean, just look at this, by the way. You thought that was good. Look at the first 5 game weeks. I mean, this is absolutely incredible. His XG is 4.98. 8 big chances. I mean, and Fulham are making some good signings as well, by the way. They should be improving as well. And they are coping with the injuries to Harry Wilson and many others who played an integral part last season. So I have to say, Mitrovic, really impressive. We talked about him in pre-season. I thought he could get 15 plus goals, but his start has still surprised me. I never expected him to get a brace against Liverpool and to score against Arsenal and do all this sort of thing. But very impressive stuff. I mean, these stats are incredible. 19 shots inside the box, 22 shots overall. I mean, Mitrovic is an absolute beast, to be honest. Isaac, Tony or Mitrovic on a wild card? For me, it's Mitrovic. I know the fixtures are bad, but I would go for Mitrovic, honestly. If you are going to wildcard in a few weeks' time, you could argue you should target the fixtures, go for Isaac, who looked really good against Liverpool, and that's fair enough. But otherwise, I would go for Mitrovic on a wildcard easily. Might need a midfielder under 5.9 million. Yeah, Gross would be the one. I'd say Aronson, Marco. I think Aronson is my favourite. I'm guessing MGW is Morgan Gibbs White. I just realised that now. Yeah, Aronson would be my pick. It's great to see so many questions, by the way. Thank you very much for your patience. I'm going to go through all of them, so don't you worry. We're now going to bring back the wildcard team, leave it on screen, and be sure to put your suggestions in the comments as well. Mitrovic has better stats than Haaland. I don't think in terms of expected goals. Maybe later in the stream I'll show a comparison between the two, but really you want both, not one or the other. I have... who should I get rid of? Cancelo, James, Perisic, Zinchenko, or Trent Zinchenko? Because he hasn't trained with the Arsenal team. The Arsenal fixtures turn very soon. And Perisic, despite the fact that I think he'll be benched against Fulham, he's someone you can keep for the long term. And I really like him beyond the next 2 or 3 games. But Spurs have some tough games as well, to be fair. But Zinchenko's the one that I'd look to sell, to be honest. Also, Perisic is a 5.5 defender. No, I agree. I think Perisic is a great defender in the long term, but he's not someone I'd look to bring in right now. Thank you, Aman Davar, for becoming a differential. Thank you very much, mate. And thank you to all the channel members. It's all massively appreciated. And just thank you very much. It means a lot. Thank you, Sefa. I'm doing well. What about you? Zaha, Mitrovic have tough fixtures. They do. But one thing I've done wrong this season, I think, is looking too much at the fixtures. And sometimes players like Zaha, Mitrovic can just do well against anybody, especially Mitrovic. So honestly, I don't really care about the fixtures. If you do, and that's fair enough, by the way, I'm not saying you're wrong, then go for Isaac over Mitrovic or Ivan Toney. And then instead of Zaha, you could go to Gross, and that gives you more money to invest in your defence, for example. Rodrigo to Rashford, I wouldn't go for Rashford still. He might score against Arsenal. Honestly, I'd still rather go to Aronson, Gross, Zaha. I think they're much better options. Who would you start between Cucurella, Williams, Martinelli, Gross? I'd start Gross. I think Leicester's a really good fixture. I mean, how many are you going to bench there, Leary? I'm not sure, but if I had to bench one, it'd probably be Williams, even though the fixture's really good. Should I keep Foden? I mean, he tends to do well against Villa, as far as I'm aware. But long term, I'd look to go to another midfielder, yes. Best 5.5, Aronson. I'm not sure if he's still 5.5, though. I need to double check that. Let me see. Hopefully he is, for your sake. So let's check very quickly. Yeah, he's still 5.5. Easy. I'd go for Aronson. He's my favourite. Should I get rid of Son? I would, Rafe. Don't get me wrong. Heung-min Son is a quality player. I wouldn't be surprised if he scored against City and, he starts turning up his form. It's only a matter of time, but I would sell him right now. Sterling plus Diaz, Zaha, or Salah and Bailey. Oh, Sterling and Zaha then, Ollie. It would be that. Start Nico Williams or Harrison. It would be Harrison. Should I bench Gabriel and play a back four of Williams, Trent, Cancelo, and Cucurella? Yes, I would bench Gabriel for Nico Williams this week, yeah. I think Perisic is a 7 million mid. Yeah, no, I agree. I wouldn't go for him right now, though, just because I don't think he's going to start, and the fixtures are really tough. Even if Spurs win the game against City, I don't see them keeping a clean sheet against Haaland. Yeah, I took a -4, Mohammed. That will be updated in the kind of scores that you see on the left-hand screen for next week when we talk about how I did in Game Week 6. Maybe play Longstaff on the wildcard for Reed. Maybe. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of these 4-point family midfielders, apart from Andreas Pereira, who... Is he still 4.5? Oh, no, he's 4.6 now. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, other than him, I'm not a big fan of the others, but that could be a shout. Should I keep Haaland? Oh, definitely. I mean, even if he's benched this week, are you really going to sell Haaland? I mean, it's at your peril, really. Who will you start, Martinelli or Aronson? This week, I'd start Aronson. Robertson plus Rodrigo for Reece, James and Zaha. Yes, I think that's a great set of moves, mate. I'd do it. Looks really good. Should I keep Jesus on a wild card? I think Jesus... Look, I talked about this, I think, last week or the week before. He didn't feature in one of my wildcard drafts. And I think there's a genuine conversation. You could actually go for Isaac and Mitrovic on top of Haaland. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And not just Isaac. You've got Ivan Toney as well. I don't think Jesus is absolutely necessary. My opinion, if we look at the fixtures... I think he blanks against United. I think he'll score against Everton. I think that's his favourite opponent, by the way. He's got like 8 goals in 10 games or something like that. And I think he'll score against Brentford. Then it gets a bit tricky, and I agree with you. You know, Liverpool, Tottenham, Liverpool, Leeds, Man City. You know, that's a good time to get rid of these Arsenal assets and maybe trim down your squad. And by that time, Jesus' ownership will go down for sure. So I don't disagree with you, mate. Diaz or Zaha? Zaha. 8 million miss overrated. 8 million miss overrated. Not sure what you mean. Maybe my brain's kind of operating a bit slowly. Sel Kulusevski. You know what? I probably would. It's not necessarily a priority transfer, and if he starts against Fulham, he'll probably do a really good job, but I think there are better options over the next few game weeks. I think Nico Williams is a must-start. I'm not sure about a must-start. It depends on who you're starting him over, but for example, if it's Nico Williams versus Andreas, I'd start Nico Williams. Nico Williams versus an Arsenal defender, Nico Williams, so I agree with that. Thank you, Aleko. Thank you very much. I'm captaining Haaland right now, but it's just because I have a slight feeling he's going to start. I'm not convinced. I wasn't convinced last week, although I had a bit of a more certainty, let's say, compared to this week. He's going to get a rest eventually, and I just don't know when that's going to be. It could just be a factor of him starting most games, but he's going to be subbed off quite early, which is what happened last week. Aronson versus Almiron? Aronson, easily, mate. Who should I captain? Completely up to you, mate. If you think Haaland starts, go for Haaland. If you're unsure, then go for Salah. I think Salah's still a great choice against Everton. Is it worth going Kane to Haaland this week or wait till next week? Probably next week, although Haaland does play Tottenham in Game Week 7. But I'd say, yeah, next week. I think Kane against Fulham, he's a great captaincy choice, to be fair. On a wild card, should I go for a double up in Kane and Haaland or downgrade? I'd probably rather downgrade Kane and not go for both of them. You've got so many forwards now. You've got Isaac, Tony, you've got Mitrovic, Jesus, Haaland and Kane. I don't think you really need those two premiums necessarily. Dean Henderson over Sanchez on a wild card. I mean, look, that's not a bad choice. I still prefer Sanchez, though. I think Brighton have a better defence. And over the next 3 to 5 game weeks, Brighton still have arguably better fixtures, at least from their perspective. But in the long term, I don't think that's a bad move, to be fair. I would go for Sanchez, though. Start Nico or Walker? I'd still go for Walker. I just really trust City, and I don't like Villa right now. Hi, Gundogan or Zaha? Both great choices, but I would go for Zaha. And Welbeck or Jesus? Jesus still, for me. Hi, mate. Have an almost perfect team and have 2 frees. Thinking of doing something with Andreas or my 4.5 million Brentford striker. I'd rather keep Andreas and sell your 4.5 million striker. Maybe upgrade to Mitrovic or Isaac. I'm not sure what your team situation is, but yeah, I'd probably do that. Zaha or Bernardo Silva? Zaha. My team for this game week: Edison, Nico Williams, Trent, James, Trippier, Cancelo, Salah captain, Martinelli, Diaz, Jesus, vice captain, Haaland, bench, Ward, Neto, Andreas, Taylor. Looks good to me. I know Neto faces Southampton, but honestly, I mean, Wolves are absolutely toothless. I like your team selection. I agree with it. I'd probably stick with that. In terms of captaincy, for me, it's between Salah and Haaland. If you don't think Haaland is going to start, fair enough. Go with Salah. And that looks good to me. I wouldn't vice-captain Jesus, though. That's the only thing I would say, but that's just my opinion. Perisic to James for a hit. I think it's worth it, actually, this week, yep. Even if it doesn't pay off over the next, let's say, 3 game weeks or so, I think it does long-term. Is it worth selling Salah to Sterling or Diaz to fill up funds in other positions? Honestly, if you could see yourself doing a lot of upgrades, which you think is going to benefit your team, I'd say yes. But I still would rather have Salah if you can. That's just the way I'm seeing it. Nico over Cucurella for starting position. I think Chelsea have a decent chance of a clean sheet this week. I'm benching Cucurella myself right now, and I'm a bit uneasy about it, especially with the new signings. It's not a bad choice, Faisal, but I think I'd still go for Cucurella. Start Andreas over Perisic or get James for Perisic? I'd rather get James for Perisic in that case. Should I get rid of Robertson this week or hold on? If you're not going to make a good transfer this week, such as Archer or 4.5 million forward to Mitrovic, then hold on. I think Robertson's a good player for the next 2. Who are you benching? In terms of this wildcard team, the bench is self-explanatory. It would be Andres Pereira, Reed, and Nico Williams, probably. I know it sounds a bit weird, but that's what it would be. You could actually arguably go for maybe Martinelli or Jesus on the bench as well. But in terms of my bench, my team, this is what it's looking like. And Cucurella is first, so it does look a bit awkward. Bernardo or Andreas, they're completely different price points. Who would I rather have to start most weeks? It would be Bernardo Silva. But honestly, for me, it's Andres Pereira, mate. Ryan, I wouldn't bench him this week, actually. I think Trippier has a good chance of a clean sheet, despite how good Palace are. I know it's a bit of a kind of conflict between Zaha and Trippier, but I think that's the way I'd go about it. Zaha or Diaz? Zaha. Son replacements or maybe a plan to spread the money around? Direct replacement, obviously, it's going to be between Salah, De Bruyne and Sterling. And then you could maybe look at Zaha, or I keep mentioning Zaha, by the way, but I think he's a great option. Maddison, Diaz, they're all good choices. And then you can spread the money around. It's completely up to you. I think, I'm just not sure what your team situation is, but I'm guessing you have kind of a similar structure to mine. And if that's the case, I'd look for a direct replacement instead. And I think Sterling looks pretty decent right now, but I'd ultimately look for De Bruyne or Salah. Hey Dylan, should I do Welbeck to Isaac, Mitrovic, Tony, or just keep Welbeck? I'd probably make the move. I think they're all better options than Welbeck. Would you bring in Trippier, Reece James for Diaz, Cucurella? Yes, I would. It's just Ruben Diaz has the best chance of clean sheets out of all the players you mentioned, but he also has the lowest ceiling. So it's a really tough one. I think if you have Cancelo, I'd look to sell Ruben Diaz potentially out of those lot, but it's a tricky question, I will admit. Silva versus Gundogan, I still prefer Gundogan. Rodrigo to Bruno Guimaraes, no, I wouldn't do that. I'd rather go to Gross or Aronson. Bruno Guimaraes, no, not for me. When will you wildcard? It's not set in stone. It could be Game Week 9, it could be a bit later. I'm not decided yet. Is it okay to wildcard this early? With the World Cup coming up and you've got unlimited transfers, I don't think it's a bad idea. It's just if you need it, you know, just ask yourself, do you think you can really benefit from it in the long term up until Game Week 17? If so, then it's worth the wildcard. But ultimately, don't just force it. Thank you, Aman, for the super chat, and thank you for becoming a channel member. Thoughts on Gundogan short term before the wildcard in Game Week 8 or 9? I actually really like it. Obviously, Bernardo Silva is the kind of flashy player, the one in form, but Gundogan for me is still even better in the long term. I think he's a really good short term pick and arguably even better than Zaha. But if I were wildcarding, I think in the long term, you're kind of looking beyond the next kind of 5 game weeks. Yeah, I think Zaha would still be my preference. But yeah, for what you're saying, Game Week 9, Game Week 8, Gundogan is probably better in the short term. Just bear in mind, there could be a benching or two. That is the big problem with him, but when he starts, he's going to get points. Perisic, Tanika, and Bailey plus Gross. Yeah, that looks really good for this week especially. And if you're looking to wildcard very soon, you could always bring Perisic back in, Ty. So, or Taj, should I say. So, yeah. Diaz versus Kulusevski this week. Kulusevski is my preference, actually, if he starts, but that's the big if. I have Robertson, Neto, Rodrigo, Ramsdale, Perisic, Nico Williams, Kane, Jesus. It's a good team. In terms of transfers to suggest, Neto is an ultimate sell and Rodrigo. So I think your midfield needs a bit of work, and you could do Rodrigo to Zaha and Neto to, let's say, Aronson or Gross, for example. If you don't have the money, then it gets a bit tricky and you might have to sacrifice someone else in your team, such as Ramsdale down to Sanchez. But let me know what your funds are. Zaha or Gross? Zaha if you have the money. If you already have Gross, should I go Rodrigo to Harrison? Yeah, Harrison, sorry. Yes, I think that's a good move. Another one's Aronson, and you've also got a few others. But yeah, that looks good to me. Do you think Arsenal's going to keep a clean sheet? No, I don't. I think United will score, and I think they'll get points in the game. Yeah, the away kit is just a Chrome extension. Type in FPL away kit's Chrome extension, you'll find it. Trippier for Cucurella, I think it's a good move. I think Chelsea might improve in the next few weeks, but I still think it's worth it over the next 3 or 4. 2 free transfers, what do you think? I got rid of the Silva or Edison or Saliba, and what is the replacement? I wouldn't get rid of Saliba just yet. I'd rather get rid of Edison and downgrade maybe to Sanchez or Henderson, and or Pope, by the way, and upgrade the Silva. I'm not sure what your funds are, but the Silva to Aronson would be a great move for you. Start Perisic or Saliba. I'd start Perisic just in case he ends up in the starting 11, but I don't think that will be the case. Should I sell Kane and Gundogan to Haaland and Zaha? Both good duos, but I do prefer Haaland and Zaha. It's just a bit of an awkward time to do Kane to Haaland right now, but Gundogan to Zaha looks good to me. Should I sell Ramsdale for the great Nick Pope? Yes, because he has a high ceiling, better fixtures, and he's a good time waster, as Liverpool fans will tell you. But no, I think it's a good move. Best midfielder for under 8.5 million, Game Week 6 to 8. For those 3 Game Weeks specifically, that's a really good question. I think Maddison. Yeah, that's my answer. Despite how poor Leicester are. Diaz out and Zaha and Isaac in? Yes, but look, Diaz is still a good option over the next 2. Ramsdale to Henderson and Neto to McAllister. McAllister's on penalties, but that's about it. I still prefer Trossard and Gross. Ramsdale to Henderson looks alright, but I wouldn't do Neto to McAllister. I'd rather go to Aronson. Nunez is back, right? Yes, he's back. Another big threat to keep an eye on? Yes, but I prefer Isaac right now, and most importantly, I prefer Mitrovic, Jesus, Haaland or Kane, and a few others. Also, Neto to Eze. Not for me, I'd prefer Aronson and a few others, such as Gross. I wouldn't go for Eze. Ramsdale or Pope? Pope. Need a replacement for me, Hickey. So around the same price, I would look for a Brighton defender. If you already have Sanchez and you're a bit uneasy about that, then fair enough. I'd probably look for Saliba or White, or maybe even for Botman. That's the kind of defenders I'd recommend to you. Fofana's not too bad at 4.4. You could consider him. But if I had to pick one and you had the money, it'd be Saliba. Raya or Sanchez, still Sanchez for me. Time waster. Klopp's reaction after the late winner was so smug. Yeah. I'll be honest. Look, the thing that my kind of point of view, no bias, is that other teams have time wasted. Maybe not to the extent that Newcastle did, and they haven't been punished for it. And I do think it's a bit of big team bias. The way I see it, if Liverpool time wasted against Newcastle like that, I don't think they would have got the extra minutes. Let me know your thoughts. You may disagree. I encourage constructive criticism and stuff like that. Should I get rid of Van Dijk? I think there are better options, but one clean sheet out of the next two isn't, out of the odds. Ultimately, I would sell him. I think there are better choices, and I'm not sure what you're looking to do with that. Are you looking to downgrade that position or maybe go for a premium? But ultimately, I would sell him, whether it's this week or in a few weeks. But I can see a clean sheet against Everton and or Wolves. Raya or Sanchez this game week? Still Sanchez for me. Neto or Martinelli? Martinelli. Perisic to Williams for a -4? No, not for a -4. Sterling or Zaha? Still Zaha for me. Hi Dylan, your ID, and I'm so lost what to do. I thought you said your team is nearly perfect. That's the thing. Are Man United players going to be viable soon? Potentially, but I'm still very skeptical about them. Against Leicester, yeah, they won the game, but they weren't that impressive to me. They're facing bottom of the league. They were decent defensively, I'll give them that, but offensively, I still don't see Ten Hag's blueprint. That is his DNA. That's just the way I see it. I need to see much more from them before I go for their attackers or consider them. Maybe someone like Malacia or, the 4-point family and defenders aren't too shabby, but I still prefer others. That's the thing. And they've got some tough games coming up. Will Isaac play Game Week 6? I believe so. He's got a dead leg, but he should be fine. Do you think Man City can keep a clean sheet? For sure. Aston Villa are terrible. Do you expect Fofana to start this weekend? Yes. If I had to say yes or no, it'd be yes, but not fully convinced. I'll say that. Thoughts on Isaac in? If you're looking for someone for the next 3 or 4 game weeks, I think Isaac's a great striker to get in. He looked really impressive against Liverpool. But Mitrovic, for me, is still my favourite forward other than Haaland in the game right now. Bench Dalot or Harvey Elliott? I'd bench Dalot. I don't see a clean sheet for United or Arsenal. And yeah, I think Harvey Elliott has a potential for attacking returns, especially in the derby. Should I sell Robertson for Trippier or hold for this game week? I made that move, but I only did it to upgrade my forward line. So if you're not going to do anything else with it, I'd hold Robertson. Is Liverpool Arthur in any way viable? Not necessarily. Even when he was at Barcelona and he had a lot of talent and everyone was hyping up to be the next big thing, he was mainly a controller of possession, a recycler of the ball. He's not someone for the assists and goals. Neto or Cucurella? Cucurella for me. Try not to spam the chat, please, because you're going to be timed out. The big team bias is definitely there. I agree. And look, you could arguably say about any kind of big 6 team, but yeah, that's the way it is. Are you going to do Champions League fantasy football? I've already done it, mate. There's a updated draft video that was released 2 days ago. I also did a first draft video, and there's going to be a team selection on Sunday, so check that out. Hi, Dylan. I want to bring Zaha. Sell Mount or Gundogan? I'd sell Mount. Edison to Ramsdale from -4? No, because Edison will start probably and keep a clean sheet. Ramsdale won't keep a clean sheet. His fixtures turn for the worse very soon, and it's not worth a -4 for a goalkeeper anyway. So wait for next week and then probably bring in Nick Pope, Dean Henderson or Sanchez. And my preference is either Sanchez or Nick Pope. Let me know what you think, but that's just the way I see it. Welcome, Genius Gamer. Perisic or Cucurella? Cucurella this week, just because I think he's going to start. Will Haaland play? I believe so, and I think he'll start, but don't hold me to that. It's just my opinion. Dalot near the top of creativity and ICT. Still bench him? I mean, I can't remember the alternative you mentioned, but let me try and get it up quickly. Yeah, Harvey Elliott. I'd still start Harvey Elliott personally. I just don't see a clean sheet there. I know Dalot has been decent recently. What do you think of Neto's home game versus Southampton? I mean, I thought Neto's game against Bournemouth looked pretty good, and they still failed to deliver. I don't like Wolves' attack, and I honestly would avoid, and I'd look to sell. You could keep him for 1 more week and then sell afterwards, but ultimately he's a sell. Okay, guys, I want Gross to midfield. Which defender do I get rid of? Zinchenko. Zinchenko hasn't been training with Arsenal. He probably won't keep a clean sheet against United, even if he starts, and Arsenal have some tough games very soon, so I would sell him. Bench, start Nika or Mitrovic this week. I have both. I'd still start Mitrovic, mate, honestly. Nico Williams, though, looks good this week, I will admit. Do I start Dalot or Saliba? Just for the attacking threat, I'd go for Dalot, but yeah, I'm not expecting anything from either. Yeah, I agree, FPL Hawk. Start Nico or Emerson Real? I'd start Emerson Real, but there is a chance he's benched this week. Would you consider Saliba or Nico to Dalot or Malacia? Maybe Nico Williams, but even then, Nico Williams is a budget option and he's got some great fixtures coming up. I wouldn't go for a United defender just yet. If there was one United defender to go for right now, it would be Dalot for the attacking threat. Pep's comments are so ironical. I heard somewhere that Everton can see most chances down the right. Salah captain. Yeah, I completely agree. I think Salah is still a great captaincy option regardless, but Haaland is just in the form of his life, and I think Aston Villa are there for the taking. They should have conceded 3 or 4 to Arsenal, and if Haaland starts, I could see him feasting with a brace at least. So it's tough, but Salah's a great captaincy option, and he's more secure and safer than Haaland. Sanchez or Henderson? Sanchez for me. Keep Odegaard? Yes, I would, but he's not my favourite option long term. Which one of Isaac, Mitrovic and Tony is best for the next 3 game weeks only? In that case, it'd probably be Isaac on paper, but they're all good. Get Cucurella out. Chilwell is coming out of injury and Chelsea will rotate. I mean, he's on my bench right now, and I'm not a big fan of Chelsea's defence anyway, but let's wait and see. I mean, Chilwell has been on the bench and available for some time now. Should I get Alba in? He's got a broken jaw. He's not going to be available this week. It's already confirmed by Tuchel, so no, I wouldn't get him in right now. And let's remember what he did for Arsenal since signing the contract. He wasn't that good. I'm not saying he's going to flop at Chelsea because I could see maybe a resurgence there with his connection with Tuchel, but I would be a bit careful with that. Just wait and see. I'd actually rather go for Sterling at this point. Tony or Mitrovic? Mitrovic for me, but they're both great. Thoughts on Renan Lodi as a differential? I'd rather go for Nico Williams for even cheaper. Bullish about Zaha despite the mere fixtures? Yep, same goes for Mitrovic. Sanchez, Trippier and Williams, or Raya, Trippier, Estupinian. Both good trios. I would rather go for Sanchez, Trippier and Williams though. Kane to Haaland or Gundogan to Diaz? If I had to, for the long term, by the way, it would be Kane to Haaland, but that could backfire. Haaland could be benched this week. Yeah, of course, Haaland might not start, but there we go. How long have you been playing FPL? I'm trying to remember now. So this is now my 3rd full season. I believe so, yeah, my 3rd full season. So first season I finished 68k, second season around 50k. Let's see what happens this year. And UCL Fantasy, the same thing. Use free hit this game week or wait? No, I'd wait. I wouldn't use it right now. I already answered your question, Mo. I wouldn't go for Lodi. Best game week to wildcard if you have a template team. I think game week 9 looks like a decent time, but there's no right or wrong answer. It could be game week 8, where there are some fixture swings, or it could also be game week 12. So between, I'd say, game week 8 and 12 looks pretty good. Alisson or Raya to start? Alisson. Use the free hit chip this week or wait out? Hi, if I swap Zinchenko out, should I get Saliba and then Perisic for Dunk? I wouldn't get... well, I'm guessing you're getting rid of Perisic, but it sounds okay to me. It's just, I wouldn't start Saliba or any Arsenal defender this week, but Saliba's a good move anyway, and he's looking really good for the bonus points. He has a bit of attacking threat about him, and he's relatively nailed, so it is a good transfer. Do I start Andreas or Harrison? Harrison. Should I get Mitrovic instead of Jesus after Chelsea's game? Honestly, if you're asking me, I'd say Mitrovic. He's my preference from what you're saying. Who is better, Stupinian or Trippier? Trippier for me. Should I keep Son or sell? I would sell him, but he is so good. He will turn things around. He'll probably score against Man City, but I still think he's worth selling. Hi, Dylan. Gundogan or Anthony? Gundogan. Zinchenko will start. That's the problem. He hasn't been training still, and Arsenal play on Sunday, of course, so they're going to have a training session tomorrow. And honestly, I think Tierney will start left back, and there is the possibility if Zinchenko gets a full training session, he looks good, he will start in midfield, but it's looking really unlikely at this point. Zaha versus third forward. I actually prefer, if I had to pick, a third forward because you arguably have more to choose from, and that's kind of the absolute opposite of what I said a few weeks ago, where I said I'd actually rather go for Zaha over Tony because you can go to Gundogan, Rodrigo, all these other options, an 8 million midfielder around a similar price. But now you've got Isaac, Tony, Jesus, you've got a few others around 7 million like Mitrovic. So my answer now would be a third forward, and Mitrovic is my favourite. What do you think of Estupinian as an option in place of Perisic? Look, Estupinian has some attacking threat, but I still would rather go for Lewis Dunk. I think he's got more goal threat specifically. With Estupinian, you mainly get the assist threat. He's a good cross of the ball. He's also very quick. He's also got a good physique. But yeah, Estupinian's not a bad option, don't get me wrong. But I would rather cover Brighton's defence with Lewis Dunk or, even better, Robert Sanchez. Nico Williams or Saliba? Nico Williams for sure. Thoughts on Ward-Prowse? Good fixtures over the next 4. Look, if there was any Southampton player to go for, apart from Aribo, Sekumara when he gets starts, and whoever pops about like Che Adams, I think Ward-Prowse is generally the kind of best option, the most consistent. But you're relying a lot on those free kicks, which, to be fair, he's the best free kick taker in the world right now. Ramsdale or Ward to start? It's a good question. I mean, I don't like Ward and Leicester. I'd go for Ramsdale, to be honest, yeah. Thoughts on Alvarez and Haaland together? It's a great duo, and I think they're going to cause absolute havoc in the Premier League. Honestly, it's scary for the rest, and I think City play better with Alvarez, so it's definitely one to look out for. It's not going to happen every single game, especially with Alvarez only being 21, I believe, but it's going to become a major factor in the years to come, and yeah, just watch out for that. Did you use any chips? No, I've not used any chips so far. I don't think Perisic will start against Fulham. Remove Diaz for Zaha after Gameweek 8 or keep? I would do that, but let's wait and see how things evolve, because Diaz could look absolutely exceptional in the next 2, and then maybe Zaha tails off. But right now, I'd say yes. Net replacement in the bank, 2 million. 0.2 million, it would be Aronson. Yeah. Nico Williams or Saliba this week? Yeah, Nico Williams, mate. Cancelo, Nico Williams, James Cucurella, Dunk, Salah, Gundogan, Zaha, Andreas De Silva, Jesus, Haaland, Isaac. What formation to use? Well, this week I would start Cancelo, James. A tough one. I would start Cucurella probably. So let's just look at who I would bench. I'd bench Andres Pereira, I'd bench De Silva, and I would bench probably one of your defenders. And in that case, I'd probably bench Lewis Dunk, potentially. Although it could be risky. He's good from set pieces. Leicester struggle a lot from corners. But, yeah, I would probably go for a 4-3-3. Yeah, a 4-3-3 formation. Will Johnson start versus Bournemouth? I believe so, but he's not really someone I'd look to target. If you have him, keep him. Otherwise, I'd look to just go for Isaac, Tony, Mitrovic, etc. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the deadline stream tomorrow. Thank you, Sephra, as well. Bavetta says, out of the new transfers after transfer days, which should I get in? I'm guessing you're talking about deadline day. Look, this is the thing. We all get excited about the new signings, the difference they can make to a team, and how well they can do in FPL, but I would wait and see. I know it's a boring answer. If there was one player that really maybe catches my eye, Aubameyang could be the one at 9 million. But right now, I wouldn't go for him. He's got a broken jaw. He's not someone I'd look to get in. You know, he's not going to even play this week. Hi, so I'm definitely doing Sinchenko for Saliba. Is doing Perisic to Dunk okay? You're not bothering me, mate. No worries about that. This is the thing. I like Perisic a lot in the long term, but I don't think he's going to start next week. And he's obviously got City after that. I think Dunk is okay. I wouldn't do it for a -4, though. Raya or Sanchez, I go for Sanchez. Trippier and Cher or Trippier and Gross? It'd be Trippier and Gross. Should I bench Saint-Maximin this week again? I mean, bench is a bit awkward because if I had him, I wouldn't look to bench him, but Saint-Maximin isn't really someone I like a lot, to be honest, in terms of FPL. So, no, I wouldn't bench him, but it also depends who you're benching him for, etc. Do you think that getting a player from every Premier League team is a good idea? Not necessarily, because some Premier League teams are worse than others. There's also the fixtures to think about, the underlying numbers, the eye test, how well they're doing. And also, it's just, yeah, you'd like to have a bit of balance. You know, that's not a bad thing, but having a player from each team, not for me. Alvarez looks so good, better than Mahrez on current form. Yeah, Mahrez has been very surprising. I thought he'd be a great 8 million midfielder this season, but just hasn't happened. Alvarez looks really, really electric. Gundogan to Diaz or Zaha for a -4? Neither. I wouldn't do it for a -4, Murad, personally. Thank you, Raf. Yeah, it's just a Chrome extension, so shout out to, I think it's Trout who did the Chrome extension. Need a Gabriel replacement so I can start a non-Arsenal defender this week. Gabriel replacement, Trippier. Yeah, that would be the one. Yeah, I agree, Singh. Thank you for that. Can we go double Brighton midfield? You could. And look, if you were to go for it, it'd be Gross and Trossard. McAllister only has the penalties over the other two. But I would personally just stick with one Brighton midfielder. Haaland tomorrow because he won't start because of rotation. It's possible. I'm not going to deny that. The best 5 to 8 million midfielder for the next game weeks. For the next few game weeks specifically, I think Maddison. Who is better, Zaha or Diaz? For me, Zaha right now. Kane and Emerson for Mitrovic and Cancelo, good transfers. The thing is, I don't like the idea... Wait, are you going from Kane and Emerson to Mitrovic and Cancelo? In that case, yes, I'd do it. I wouldn't downgrade Cancelo to Emerson. Rashford against Arsenal. I don't think he's ever scored against them since the brace, his Premier League debut against the Gunners. Now, I'm not saying he can't score. I can see United scoring a goal or two, but I just don't like Rashford in general as an FPL option right now. Neto to Aronson for a -4, is it worth it? I just hold Neto in that case and then get Aronson next week. Yeah, I already answered your question, Bavetta. When are you wildcarding? I've not decided yet, but game week 9 is, around that time, could be an option. Nico or Dunk? This week, Nico Williams, I'd say, but it's really close. Yeah, I haven't used the chip yet. I made early transfers last week and this week, and this is the first time I've taken a hit. Can we go? Yeah, I already answered that question, sorry. Leicester midfield is interesting to you. Barnes around that price is one of the best, but I still prefer Zaha. And Maddison, for me, is the best 8 million midfielder, with Diaz being a close second right now. Captain Kane or Salah? I'd go for Kane, I think, but it's a really close one. -4, take out Salah, Bailey, Kane, and Harrison in. I mean, you are improving your team in terms of as a duo. Harrison and Kane is better, but would I take a -4? No. Zinchenko or Perisic? Perisic, but I don't think Perisic will start in game week 6, and I don't think Zinchenko starts either, but he's injured. Aubameyang is a forward, Sing. 9 million forward. Who is better, Zaha or Diaz? For me, Zaha. Perisic or Dunk? This week, Dunk. Long term, I would go for Perisic. Thank you for the super chat, Surab. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Odegaard or Martinelli? Long term, it's definitely Martinelli for me. I am captaining Haaland right now, as you can see on screen. Yep. Tony, Mitrovic or Isaac? For the next few weeks, I will admit, I would probably say Isaac, but I've gone for Mitrovic because I may wildcard a little bit later. I haven't decided yet. And also, for me, Mitrovic is an absolute goal machine. Gundogan and Rashford to Bernardo Maddison for a -4. It looks good, to be fair. I wouldn't do Gundogan to Bernardo, though. I'd do Rashford to Maddison. If you can afford it for free, Jack, I'd do it. Welcome. Footy is my world. What do you make of Pep's comments today? Typical Pep, just casts even more doubts in your mind. But a bit more promising, you could say, about Haaland. He was implying that he could start most games. He's 22, not 32, as he said. Welcome, Oscar. Do you think Newcastle defence will keep a clean sheet? I think they have a good chance. I'm not saying they definitely will, but last year in this fixture, I believe they won 1-0, and I could see something similar. But I still like Zaha a lot for the long term. Pope or Henderson for Game Week 6? For Game Week 6, I'd say Henderson. Should I play Saka with 0.1 million in the bank? I would. I could see returns against Brentford and Everton, but overall, the fixtures turn very soon. Saka hasn't been that great so far. And with 0.1 million, I think you could go to... no, I think he's down to 7.8, isn't he? Let me double check this for you. He's 7.8 or 7.9. Yeah, he's 7.8. So I would probably go for Zaha. I think in the long term, he's a really good replacement for him. Captain Kane or Haaland? For safety, Harry Kane, but if he starts, Haaland is my preference, and I'm backing Erling Haaland to start. That's just my personal opinion, so I'm going for the Norwegian. Trossard or Diaz for the next 3? Trossard. Maka, Rodrigo plus Robertson to Trippier and Aronson for a -4, and then next game week maybe changing Archer to Isaac, Tony, Mitrovic. It looks great to me, to be fair. Robertson could bite you this week, but honestly, it's a great hit, and I think it's worth it, Maka. Hopefully you got that. Cucurella or Trippier? This week, Trippier. Robertson to Trippier this week or next? If you can, next week. I only did it this week because it allowed me to get Mitrovic, and I really like Mitrovic in general, despite the fixtures. Rashford to Maddison for a -4. I think it's worth it, actually, yeah. Should I take Jesus for Darwin? I wouldn't sell Jesus for Darwin because we don't even know if Darwin starts. Remember, Firmino has scored, 3 goals in his last 2 games with 3 assists. It's not a guarantee. And even if, let's say, Nunez starts this week and Firmino starts in midweek, will Nunez then start again in the following weeks to come? So I'd rather keep Jesus. If anything, go to Isaac, Tony, or Mitrovic, but not Darwin Nunez for me. Fair enough, Mo. That's that's what I like. So, you know, we can have our own different opinions. You can go for Lodi. I think it was a great UCL fantasy option, for example. It's just from the Nottingham Forest defence, Nico Williams offers better value for me. But it's good to disagree, and I encourage that. Best replacement for Zinchenko, have Trippier, James, and Cancelo. Trent. Saliba is a good one, like-for-like replacement. If not, you could just downgrade to Nico Williams, who has good fixtures, and you could even start him this week and always bench when the fixtures get tough. Trossard or Diaz for the next three. Like I said already, Citizen, I'd go for Trossard, but it's really close. Should I get Saliba instead of White? Yes. I think Saliba's a bit more nailed right now. Is it okay that I'm missing out on Gross this week and then get him next week? I mean, Leicester's a good fixture, but Gross has some good fixtures after that as well. So you can't cover everyone in every single game week. So if you don't go with him this week, it's not the end of the world. Should I bring in Zaha for Mount? I would, honestly. Can we move away from Jesus to some differentials, seeing high ownership? Honestly, yes, we can. What I'm looking to do is keep Jesus for now. He's got a great record against Everton, for example. So, yeah, I think he'll blank against United and probably get returns in the two after. But, look, then he's facing Tottenham, Liverpool, Leeds, Man City. I don't want him for that. And even a few games after that is Chelsea. So, around that time period, I'm looking at Isaac, Ivan Toney, maybe another forward as well. It could be even Aubameyang. So, right now, I would keep Jesus, but it's not a bad thing selling him ahead of United. He's never scored or assisted against them in 11 games. It's not a bad shout, mate. I think it's a good move in the long term, but you could save it for maybe game week, let's say 9 or 10. Captain Kane or Captain Salah, both great, but I'd go for Kane. Long term, should I go for Perisic, Robertson, James, or Trippier? Oh, out of those four, James. Yes, I think the fixtures are great for Chelsea, and Reece James should start the vast majority, if not all. The only problem is injuries. Do you think due to effective ownership, Haaland could be safer than Salah, even with minutes risk? I see what you mean, because you're backing against the effective ownership. If, let's say, for example, Haaland doesn't start and you captain him, well, most people captain him anyway. But if you go with Salah, but Haaland starts, then you're maybe screwed, you could say. I understand that perspective, but don't look too much into effective ownership. Only captain, you know, based on what you think. Do you think Haaland's going to start? If so, and you think he's going to do a great job, captain him. And don't try to overcomplicate it. You're not always going to get it bang on. Pep Roulette will strike us, but when Haaland starts, he's going to get points. What do you think of downgrading Diaz to get a third striker? I'm not opposed to that. I think that's a good move, and I prefer Mitrovic and Toney over Diaz, and I've said that all along. Should I sell Trent? No, I wouldn't sell Trent. Henderson or Pope? Pope. Harrison starts 3-4-3 or Tomiyasu 4-3-3. This week I'd start Harrison. Should I sell Salah and bring Sterling? Not for me. Want to keep an eye on. I think Sterling could offer better value, but right now I'd keep Salah. Maybe something to look at in 3 game weeks time. Thank you, Amir, for the super chat. Thoughts about Sinistera? Scored a nice long shot against Everton, caught Pickford wrong-footed, and Sinistera was one that was really hyped in pre-season. He did very well in the Eredivisie last year, but right now I prefer Harrison and also Aronson, who offers really good value. You've also got Gross and Zaha for a little bit more than Sinistera, so I am keeping an eye on him. I would keep him on the watch list. And look, if you are convinced by him, then go for it. But I think there are better options, and I want to see a bit more from him first. Cucurella out. If so, for who? Bear in mind with Cucurella, Charlie, he does have some really good fixtures coming up, apart from Liverpool. And if Chelsea get their act together defensively, then having James and Cucurella isn't the worst thing in the world. And just think about the replacements for him. Maybe Trippier could be even better for the next few game weeks. And what are you going to do with your wildcard? Are you maybe going to wildcard in a few weeks' time? If so, then you could do Cucurella to Trippier. But otherwise, maybe keep for now and then reassess in a few weeks. And if Cucurella is still a sell, then I would recommend Trippier and a few others around that price. Toney to Mitrovic for -4? No. I really like Mitrovic. I think he's better than Toney right now, but it's not worth a -4. And Toney has a better set of fixtures, especially in the next two, so it's not worth a -4. Why is no one talking about Kulusevski? Well, to be honest, because there's so many options in the midfield this season, and Zaha's taken the limelight. Rodrigo did for the first 3 game weeks. You've got Gross, you've also got Diaz, Maddison. There's so many to choose from. So Kulusevski's not a bad option, but at the same time, he's not setting the world alight, in my opinion. Yeah, look, I think he's being a better option than Saka right now, But why would you bring in Kulusevski, in my opinion, when he's got some tough games coming up and you've got a lot of alternatives around a similar price? You could point towards my team and say, well, why did you get Mitrovic then? But that's because I'm absolutely convinced about him scoring in most games, if not all. But then again, you know, you could say I'm completely wrong about that. Will Perisic play? I don't think so, Gil. I don't think he will. Start Walker and Cancelo. I'd start both. Yeah, I really back City's defence. If you're a bit unsure, then start Nico Williams over Walker. Never bench Cancelo, in my opinion. It's ironic how forwards were so poor last year and everyone is trying to get free of them now. Things change, and, you know, everyone thought last year, you know, forwards would really be great with Lukaku, Ronaldo, Aubameyang, and just things didn't turn out right. But now we've got so many options, and even those around the mid-price range are looking great. Thank you, Hayes. Thank you, Raf. My team, don't worry, I'm going to be covering in my deadline stream, and nothing has changed from my team selection video, but this is my team, so nothing fancy. Gross or Trossard? For the next few game weeks, Gross. Should I captain KDB or Salah? I'd captain Salah this week out of the two. Everton, right wing expected goals conceded seem poor. Yep, Salah, Trent, better position than Haaland. If Haaland starts, I'd say no. But look, Trent, I mean, some people are looking to sell Trent. Definitely not. Would I captain Trent? I could see Everton possibly scoring a goal. So captaincy is a bit different. Salah is still, for me, if I had to put a ranking, he'd be my top 3 captaincy options. I think it would be Haaland if he starts in first, Kane second, and Salah third. But look, you could be completely right. Everton, this is the thing with them. They haven't been conceding too many goals. Even when they haven't been getting the results, they tend to concede 1 or 2. And with Villa, for example, you know, they've looked all over the place and they should have conceded much more to Arsenal. And if they do that against City, they're screwed. Kane, Salah and Haaland. Yeah, I literally just did that, Siang. So for me, it'd be Haaland first. If he starts, Kane second, Salah third. My squad value, good question. I haven't been paying too much attention to that. It's 101.2 million, so it's been boosted with my early transfers in the last week or so, but the main reason why I've done that is just to get it over the line and because I really want these players long term. What do you think about my team? Sanchez, Trent, James, Cancelo, Perisic, Williams, Martinelli, Salah, Jesus, Mitrovic, Haaland. It's a good team. You've got a decent bench as well, but Rodrigo is the one to sell. And also, you know, by doing that, you have someone who can come in just in case Perisic misses out completely, as an example. So Rodrigo to Zaha would look really good for you. If you don't have the money, then you could do Rodrigo to Aronson or Harrison. That would look really good. Hopefully you got that. Estupinian or Dunk? Dunk for me. Mendy and Rodrigo to Sanchez and Gross, 2 free transfers. Yes, looks good to me. I will do it random. Thoughts on Willian? I mean, I tend to be very cautious of new signings, but with Willian especially, he was absolutely awful at Arsenal. Had a great debut against Fulham with I think he got 2 assists, a hat-trick of FPL assists. Really good performance, but he was absolutely awful. Even in Brazil, he got death threats and stuff like that, which I don't condone, of course, but, you know, he hasn't been at it in football for the last 2 years, really. So, for me, from Fulham, Andres Pereira and Mitrovic are the best options. I'll wait and see with Willian, who might not even start yet because the other options in his position are doing a good job right now. Should I start Saliba or Perisic? I'd start Perisic, but only just in case he starts. And to be honest, I don't think he will. So it'd be Perisic first, Saliba second, and Andres third. The only problem with that, with what I just said, is if Perisic comes on for a 1-pointer, which is possible. And if that's the case, Saliba might be the best to start, but I'm not expecting a return from any of them unless Perisic starts and I'm wrong. Should I use the wildcard or wait for Gameweek 8 and 9? I can't answer that question because I don't know your team, and it's a really difficult question to answer. You know, the wildcard might be the right time to play it now. It could be in Gameweek 9, but honestly, I just don't know your team, so it's really tough. Honestly, for most people, I would say we could wait a little bit longer because most of our teams are looking pretty solid. Start Nico or Walker? I'd start Walker. Either is fine, though. Do you think it's dumb to start Estupinian over Jesus? Look, I don't think it's dumb, and it's not because Jesus has a tough fixture, it's because of his record against United. 11 games, 0 goals, 0 assists, and I think Jesus will blank, personally. I could be wrong, but I think he will blank. So I am actually considering something similar, going for Cucurella over Jesus. But I don't think United is necessarily such a tough fixture. It just might be from an Arsenal perspective at Old Trafford. Is the away kits in your... yes, a Chrome extension, Swahib. It's a Chrome extension. So if you type in FPL away kits Chrome extension, you'll find it. There is no prize in the Fantasy League, mate. There's something that could happen in the future, but there's no prize. Saka versus Manu. I mean, he got an assist a few years back, I think in the first time he played at Old Trafford, but look, Saka is still a sell in the long term for me. Yeah. Andres or the Silva first sub? Probably the Silva for the fixture. Everton getting going to time waste, no doubt. It's game state that might impact. If Liverpool score first, unlikely considering recent results, then Salah would be a better option. Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I think Liverpool assets pose some really good captaincy options. Defret says, yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, fans in South America are passionate, but there is a limit. I already bought Estupinian. Why do you think Dunk is the choice? Because Dunk is more nailed. He also has better goal threat. What Estupinian has is the assist threat. And in terms of bonus, I would argue Dunk is even better, especially in games where Brighton have a lot of possession and Dunk is, really important in how they build out from the back. So for me, Dunk is the better option, but both really good. Thank you, Snayo. Hopefully I pronounced that right. YT. Already made my transfers though. Kane to Haaland and Tony to Mitrovic. Fair enough. And we'll do Rodrigo to Harrison next week. Yeah, you're in good shape, mate. Thank you, Aluminium. Thanks for answering my previous question. Who do you think is the best midfielder under 7.8 million? Personally, despite the fixtures, it is Wilfried Zaha. But if you're not convinced, you've got Harrison, who for me is the best at... Aronson at 5.5 and below. He is the very best. Yeah, you've got Gross and Martinelli, who are two of the best already at that price. So for me, it would be Zaha. Another one that I'd really consider is Gundogan, and with the form he's in, Bernardo, but I'm still not fully convinced by him. So all in all, it's Zaha. Williams for cash, good option. Well, honestly, anyone but cash is a good option. So yes, I'd say so. Grossin and Sel Jensen, yes, I think it's worth it. And I was never really... Look, the thing with Jensen, I thought he was a good purchase for someone at that price and below. But I always said my preference was to go away from that because you're really limited. And just look at Bailey and Neto and how they started this season. Gross, sorry, I just said that. 3 players from my squad got injured, so I'm using my wild card for Gameweek 6. Fair enough. That's fair enough. Everyone's team situation is different. And if that really impacted your first 11, then it makes sense. I have KDB captain this week. Should I play safe and switch to Haaland? Then again, I wouldn't say it's playing safe because Haaland could be benched still. My gut feeling is that he will start, and that's why I'm captaining him. But there's no, I'd say, safe captaincy. Captain the player that you think is going to score the most points. If it's KDB, go for it. Don't just go for Haaland because it's safer, in your opinion. That's the way I see it. They're both great captaincy options. If I had to pick between the two, it would be Haaland, but it could go wrong either way. Saka and Kane for Haaland and Zaha. Yeah, that's a good set of transfers. I would do it. Just bear in mind that Haaland could be benched this week, and it could backfire this week specifically. Is a -4 okay to do? Saka, Archer, Rodrigo to Martinelli, Mitrovic, and another midfielder up to 5.4. I mean, the first two moves look great. It's a bit of a shame you don't have 5.5 for Aronson. You're really limited with 5.4 million and below. So the -8 is good overall, despite the fact that Saka is still a decent option. I would go ahead with it, but just bear in mind you're really limited with a midfielder at 5.4. My team is Mendy, Martinez, James, Trent, Cancelo, Perisic, Davis, Bailey, Ward, Prowse, Diaz, Saka, Rodrigo, Haaland, Jesus, Greenwood. Quite horrible. So, look, the things that I like about your team, James, Trent, Cancelo, Perisic, despite in the short term Perisic being maybe a bit of a concern. You've also got Diaz, Saka, who are decent, and Haaland, Jesus. That's all really good. The problems really lie with Greenwood. I mean, maybe you want a third forward, for example. Rodrigo's injured. Ward-Prowse, I'm still not convinced by. Bailey, I mean, you'd rather just go to Andres Pereira and then invest more money in your midfield. Davis, I'm not a big fan of, especially with the fixtures. I'm guessing that's Spurs Davis, isn't it? So yeah, he's someone you can look to get rid of. And your goalkeepers, I think that's far too much money in the goalkeeper position, and both of them, quite frankly, are awful at the moment. So you could arguably wildcard, yes. If you were to wildcard, you could go to something like this, which you can see on screen. You can get Sanchez in goal, go for Ward as your second goalkeeper, and then just to show you very quickly, you can go for Trent, James Cancelo, you've already got, to be fair. Then you can also add a Saliba, a Trippier, even Cucurella if you back Chelsea to do very well with their upcoming fixtures. You've also got Salah, De Bruyne, Sterling, for the kind of premium midfielder. You can then go away from Diaz to Zaha. You can get Martinelli, Gross. You've got a lot of options. Then get that 4-point family midfielder like Andres Pereira. Then shift to a front three like this. And maybe you could actually gain rank by going away from Jesus and going to Isaac or Ivan Toney. Because Jesus, apart from the next, let's say, the 2 games after United, I'm not that convinced by him, and I think he is probably a sell by that point. But let's wait and see, because he's still looking really good so far this season. So all in all, I think a wildcard could benefit you. Williams in and bench Jesus. I don't think I'd do that, though. Despite the fact that on paper, Williams is more likely to get a return, I wouldn't do it, personally. Diaz, Zaha or Sterling, in your opinion? With the fixtures in mind, if you have the funds, it would be Sterling. But in terms of value for money, and a player that I'd be more likely to get into my own team, and one I'd recommend to most people, it's Zaha. Hey Dylan, who do you think I should bench out of these? Saliba, Trippier, Martinelli, Harrison or Gross? If I had to pick one, it'd be Saliba. Anyone know if Aubameyang is injured? He's got a broken jaw from the robbery at Barcelona, so he's not ready to go. Tuchel confirmed it today. Martinelli to Bernardo, no chance. I still prefer Martinelli. Dunk or Saliba? Dunk this week. Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. Thank you, my Fairground M. Veltman or Perisic to start? Veltman this week. No Haaland for my wild card. That's really bold. I personally would include him, even if he is benched this week. With many wildcards coming soon, team review stream or Insta screenshots in your mind, it's a possibility for sure. Maybe next week, because we've got a week's break. The only problem is we've also got UCL Fantasy midweek, so there's always something, but I'll try to do something soon. Yeah. Yeah, we've still got 300 plus people watching. It's absolutely insane. Thank you very much for all the support. We've got a deadline stream tomorrow, so be sure not to miss it. Let's get this video to over 200 likes. So thank you very much for all your support. And maybe today, you never know, we could hit 13,000 subscribers. So thank you very much for your support. Let's do a little check quickly in terms of where we're at. Wow, we've got over 100 subscribers today. Thank you to everyone. Really means a lot. We are literally 138 subscribers away from 13,000. So keep on smashing the subscribe button. And we're going to go through many more questions in the meantime. And we've already gone through quite a lot. Hi, Dylan. Is it okay to do a -12? I wouldn't do a -12. Maybe save it for next week. You could even use a wildcard, to be fair, especially, Twan, if you are looking to make further changes on top of the -12. Suggestions for a midfielder for 5 million. Honestly, just Andreas Pereira. No one else is really that impressive, in my opinion. I might be missing somebody, to be fair. Almiron's not horrible, but yeah, for me, it's Andreas Pereira. It's as simple as that. Will Son start against Fulham? It's between him and Richarlison. I think there is a good chance that Son could be benched. Honestly, if you're asking me now, I think Richarlison starts in the Premier League and Son starts in the Champions League, but I could be wrong. I'm thinking to take Salah out for Sterling. Look, it's not a bad idea on paper, but I'd probably wait for, when the fixtures turn for Chelsea. Obviously, they have some good games coming up anyway, but after the Liverpool game for Chelsea, that's when you could get Sterling in. But right now, I'd keep Salah and reassess in a few weeks. Thank you, Gil. Thank you very much. Martinelli to Bernardo. I wouldn't do it, Christian. I think Martinelli's better. Gross, Zaha, Mitrovic with a downgraded defence, or Diaz, Mitrovic with a slightly stronger defence? Good question. It just depends, because Gross, Zaha, Mitrovic, but then with the downgrade, or should I say the slightly stronger defence, you'd have a slightly weaker midfield. So it just depends really what your defence is already, and how much it's going to be influenced by being slightly weaker or stronger. So on paper, from what you've told me, Gross, Zaha, Mitrovic and a downgraded defence, which I guess includes Nico Williams, looks really good to me. Any midfield suggestions? Around 7 million, Zaha is my favourite. At a lower price point, Gross and Aronson are my favourites. Then you're looking at 8 million, Maddison and Diaz in that order. Around 10 million Sterling. And then, of course, you got the usual Salah and De Bruyne for the premiums. Yeah, Wei saying the transfer's already made. I talked about it in my transfer tips video. Thank you, Aniket. Love from India. Thank you very much. Big up India. Thank you. Tony or Isaac? I mean, Tony's more Premier League proven, and I think he'll get more goal contributions. But for the next 3 or 4 game weeks, if you're looking to wildcard soon, my answer will be Isaac. Hi, Dylan. Is it okay to take a -12? Like I said to one, I wouldn't do that, mate. Not for me. -4 Harrison and Nico Williams over Cash and Rodrigo. It's worth a -4, yes, but you could consider maybe a few other options. I mean, it's not the greatest -4, you could say, but it's all right. You're getting rid of, an awful defence who are facing the best team in the league, and you're getting rid of Rodrigo, who's injured for 3-4 weeks, so it's worth it. Will you play Andreas? No, not this week. Cucurella is first on my bench, and even in this wildcard team that you can see, he would not be playing this week. What do you think of this team? Says Joaquim. looks good. Nunez isn't my favourite forward. I'd rather go for even Jesus, Oni, Isaac, Mitrovic, etc. Midfield, there's a few that I prefer over Foden and Mount. So there's a few things I would change with your team, but it looks good overall. I like your goalkeeper, by the way, probably top 2 options for the next 10 game weeks. Cucurella, James Trippier, Walker. I mean, it's a good defence, but I would still try to get the likes of Trent and Cancelo in there. Trippier looks really good, by the way. Williams is fine. Salah is still really good. But yeah, I think there's a few changes I would make, and that includes Foden, Mount, and then I'd probably say trying to get one of those premium defenders in, Joachim. Son is poor, not only FPL, yeah, exactly. His overall performances, the underlying numbers, the eye test, everything. Will Perisic and Haaland start? Haaland, I believe so. Don't hold me to that. Perisic, I believe, will be benched. Let's wait and see. I'm not in the know, so I don't have any extra information. I'm just literally giving my opinion. Bernardo Silva or Diaz? Still Diaz for me, but it's really close. Would you take Ramsdale out, and if so, for Sanchez or Henderson? Sanchez still for me. I think they have a better defence than Nottingham Forest. Pull some Carvalho for the bench. I'd just rather go for someone else and not occupy a Liverpool spot, which you might want in the future. Walker or Nico? I'd go for Walker. Will you play Andreas? No, I won't. When will Haaland finally get benched? That's the big question. What could happen instead is him getting 60 minutes most games, if not all, and he comes off early because City just win every game easily. Don't have the funds, thinking maybe midfield will be Martinelli, Diaz, Zaha. That looks good, to be honest, Kiel. That looks good. Robert plus Perisic out for Trent and Estupinian. I don't think it's worth a -4 hit, mate. What you could do is Perisic to Estupinian or another defender for free, and you can always wildcard Perisic back in. But for a -4 hit, getting rid of Robertson, not for me. Would you take Ramsdale? Yeah, just answer that question, Oase. Burn or share? Share, in my opinion. Fabio Carvalho is 5.4 million. Doesn't sound too bad. He doesn't sound too bad, but I'd rather go for Aronson at 5.5 million or go for Gross at 5.9. Say maximum fit to play. I don't think we've had any news on that front. I believe the gut feeling is that he will start, but honestly, it's just a guess. Would I buy him? No, because I'd rather go to Gross, Zaha, Aronson, etc. Swapping Kane that plays against Fulham this week is weird. Yeah, that's why, and I said it last week as well. You know, Kane, as much as Haaland is the better option, Haaland could be benched, and Kane is much more likely to play, and it can always backfire, especially when he's playing Fulham. Veltman or Perisic, like I said, hello, I would start Veltman. Captain Jesus or Kane, I definitely wouldn't captain Jesus this week. Obviously, it's up to you. Do what you want, but Jesus has never scored or assisted in 11 games versus Man United. I think Kane's the clear favourite there. Yeah, we have an early kickoff for UCL this season. Yeah, we'll be doing the deadline stream on Tuesday. There's going to be the deadline stream for FPL tomorrow. The reaction stream for Game Week 7, looking ahead to Game Week 7, might not be on Sunday because I'm going to be out watching the football. So that could be on the Monday instead. So stay tuned for that. And honestly, I'm blown away by your support today because this is a kind of late reaction stream and there's so many of you here. And we've made significant strides in terms of the subscribers. So we're 100 subscribers away pretty much from 13,000. Thank you very much for all your support. Will Kane play? I believe so. Neto to Carvalho? I just wouldn't do it. I'd rather go to Aronson. That's my preference around that price. Zaha or Gross? Zaha. Both great options though. Bench Ward or Ramsdale? I would bench Ward. Start Ramsdale. Zaha or Nico Williams? I would start Zaha, but it's a close one. Are you going to wildcard and use this team? No. My team is this one, and I'm quite happy with it. I took a -4 hit this week, and it's not that kind of dissimilar to the best wildcard team. So, no. I'd rather wildcard in a few weeks and chase the, or not chase, but kind of target the fixture swings. Maybe get off Jesus, for example. Thank you, hello. Martin says Arnold, Cancelo, Perisic, James, Salah, Martinelli, Gross, De Silva, Haaland, Jesus. It's a really good team. De Silva isn't someone I like too much. You can go to Andres Pereira on the same price or go up to Aronson depending on your budget. Perisic is a short-term concern, but a really good long-term asset. So you could do Perisic out for Trippier, and you'll benefit in the short term. But honestly, your team's fine. Gibbs plus White, Aronson, and Isaac differential versus Gross and Mitro. I'd still go for the template because it's not like the ownership is ridiculously high. I think they're both around 20%. I just do that. Worth benching Martinelli for Trippier? I think it is worth it potentially this week. I don't see huge returns from either this week, but I'd say Trippier is probably a bit more likely to return. Walker to Trippier? Yes, I think it's a good move. I'm not going to wildcard this week. Start Jesus or Nico Williams? Jesus still. What to do with Rodrigo? Have 6.6 million to spend for a player, but who to take Robertson out for Trippier and Rodrigo for a 8.2 million midfielder, or less from -4. Okay, I see what you mean. I would do it for a -4 and get Trippier in and a midfielder like Zaha. But it's completely up to you, and you could maybe wait another week before doing that, because Robertson against Everton has a good chance of returning. Alisson to Sanchez, I think it's worth it, yes. You've also got Dean Henderson and Nick Pope. Week to buy James. The week to buy James for me is after the Liverpool game, so we're looking at game week 9. Crystal Palace isn't an easy game, so maybe a better one still would be game week 10 against Wolves at home. So game week 9 or 10 is the best time to buy. Good fixtures up until game week 18. Then it turns for a bit, but even then, you know, apart from Man City, Liverpool, the fixtures look good up until game week 24. You know, you've got a few tough ones in here like Arsenal, Man United, Newcastle, but still, looks pretty good for Reece James. Trippier or Saliba? Trippier. At one point, do you think we can move away from Martinelli and Jesus? I said this before with Jesus. I think I'd be a bit happier to keep Martinelli, but Jesus is one I'd be very willing to sell. And the specific week would be game week 9 against Tottenham, because, you know, you've got Tottenham, Liverpool, then you've got Leeds, which is decent, but then Man City, and then you've got 2 good games, but then Chelsea away. So honestly, for me, game week 9 is probably the best time to sell Gabriel Jesus on paper. He can do well against Tottenham, and I think he has done very well against them in the past, but that's a good time. I have Saliba, is that all right? For sure, definitely. I'm looking to get him in potentially for Cucurella in the weeks to come if Chelsea don't improve. Got Mendy out for Henderson to free up funds with Mendy. Good call. Yes, I mean, even if Chelsea pick things up, I'd rather have Cucurella, James, and even Fofana. What's your opinion on Salah? I still think he's a great option. Don't get me wrong. The thing is, though, there's more of an argument to go about him this year because he's 13 million and we're mainly going to captain Haaland this year, it looks like, at least as things stand. So he's not essential anymore. I mean, it's always a bit of a kind of tricky word to use. You don't really want to say anyone's essential, but honestly, Salah isn't as appealing as he once was, but he's still a good option. He's got this more creative role that we all know about, and I just don't really like it as in terms of his FPL credentials and his chances of getting points. Thank you, Alvin. I appreciate it. Start Perisic or Nico Williams? I would start Nico Williams. Trippier or Nico? Trippier for the next 3. Do I take out Salah and Archer up front and bring in Mitrovic and an under 12.1 million midfielder in? If it's for free, then I would do it. Otherwise, for a -4, no chance. And Salah in the next 2 games could do very well. Rodrigo replacement, Diaz, Zaha, and Saint-Maximin. The way I'd rank it is Zaha first, Diaz second, and Saint-Maximin third. Haaland or Salah captain, both great. I'm going for Haaland myself, but that's only if you back him to start. Is Stupinian or in for Perisic? It's a good transfer to be fair, but I would rather go for Trippier if you can. Who would you start, De Silva or Andreas? I would go for De Silva for the fixture. Sinisterra for Rodrigo. Not a bad shout. My preference is Aronson and Harrison from Leeds United. The first wildcard is expired by game week 19, I believe. I might be getting that wrong. It might be game week 17. Basically, the first wildcard will be expired by the time the World Cup begins. So game week 17 it could be. I'll have to double check that. Correct me in the live chat if I'm wrong, but it has to be game week 17 or 19. Remember, we do have unlimited transfers heading into the World Cup. Actually, now that I think about it, the wildcard is still active, like you still can use it in game week 18. So I think it's game week 19, the 26th of September. Sorry, I can't even speak. December. So yeah, game week 19 is now kind of, you know, popping about in my mind. Thank you, Martins. Thank you very much. Thank you, United. Arsenal will crush Spurs without any doubt. I want to say crush. Spurs defend pretty well. Even against West Ham, where they should have lost, they still might find a way to get those results in and, you know, concede few goals. Kulusevski or Diaz, because of rotation and the way things have gone, I actually prefer Diaz right now. Alvarez or Bernardo, I actually prefer Alvarez. The only thing is he's going to be getting fewer starts, and honestly, I'd rather go for Tony, Mitrovic, and Isaac. It's a wildcard team, yes. This one that you can see on screen, but I'm not going to wildcard this week. It's just a wildcard team for you lot. Because it's very popular every single week. People want to see the best wildcard team, and we didn't do a reaction stream, so I merged the 2 of them together to get this done. Would you go for Saint-Maximin? Honest answer is no. Why do you think it's a good take in Zaha? I don't just look at the fixtures, that's the thing, and I have done a lot this season, more so than usual, and I've missed out on points big time. So I'm actually a bit more open-minded with the likes of Mitrovic and Zaha, who have been in incredible form. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't need to go for Zaha. You know, it's not the best time to get him in, but I honestly think he'll keep it up. He's got the third most goals in 2022 of any Premier League player. Sell Perisic, Kyle Walker for Reece James. Right now, I'd rather sell Perisic, but in the long term, Perisic is definitely a much better option than Kyle Walker. What do you think of Veltman? He's a decent option, but I'd rather cover Brighton defence with Sanchez and Dunk. Nico, Zaha, Johnson or Dunk, Trossard, Isaac. Good question. Dunk, Trossard and Isaac looks pretty good to me, to be fair. That is my preference. Salah against Everton is appealing, for sure. For sure. Is it worth to drop? I'm not sure who that is, sorry. James for Williams and then upgrade to Mitrovic for -4. No. Dropping James for a -4, not for me. Isn't the best game week to buy full Massic Game Week 8. Or Game Week 7, I'd argue. I think Chelsea could be a decent fixture, but yes, you're right. Game Week 8 on paper looks the best. Nico, Zaha, Johnson or Dunk, Trossard, Isaac. Yeah, just answer that, Sina. The second trio is better. Game Week 16 first wildcard expires. Thank you for the correction, Bobs. Yeah, that does make sense because, I mean, we do have unlimited transfers heading into the World Cup. So, yeah, it's something worth bearing in mind. And that's why a lot of people are more inclined to wildcard early this year. Who do I start, Andreas or Saliba? I'd start Saliba out of those two. Any news transfers on deadline day or in general that you keep your eye on? Aubameyang could be one. 9 million is a decent price for him. Anyone else, really? Willian could be someone that could be very surprising at 5.5, but honestly, I mean, there's not really too much that comes into the back of my mind. I think Aubameyang's the biggest one. Isn't Tony better than Mitrovic for the next 3 game weeks? He is, but I'm looking at Mitrovic beyond that because I may wildcard a little bit later. And honestly, I think Mitrovic, he's a goal machine. I back him to score against Chelsea and also in game weeks 8 onwards. I have the same wildcard team except Gross for Zaha. Should I switch? If it's for free, then it's not a bad transfer. But honestly, Gross is fine. You know, you don't need to make that transfer. Maybe when Brighton's fixtures turn for the worse and Palace's get better, that's when you can make the move. I just like Zaha longer term, but for the short term, I'd keep Gross. James or Trent? Trent. If I had to pick one, it has to be Trent. Would you captain Kane if you had him? Interesting. Probably yes, because I expect him to start and he has a good fixture, but it's a tough one. It's really tough. I mean, the thing is, if Haaland starts, if I was convinced that Haaland starts, he's always my captain. That's literally as simple as that. Thank you, United. Yeah, F1 Fantasy, UCL Fantasy, and Extra Grind. Yeah, it is crazy, but it's been good fun. A triple upload today. Tomorrow is going to be the deadline stream. Sunday, the UCL Fantasy team selection. And Monday, the reaction stream potentially, as well as the usual content for next week for FPL. The deadline stream on Tuesday for UCL Fantasy. But yeah, there's plenty of content headed your way. Hold Ramsdale. Over the next 3 you could hold, but ultimately there are better goalkeepers and you could sell for Pope, Henderson or Sanchez. Really tempted to do Trent, Rodrigo out for Stupinian, Sterling -4, but I think the smart choice is just Rodrigo to Zaha. Thoughts? I mean, it looks good to me, but I mean, yeah, getting rid of Trent for a -4, no go. Yeah, Rodrigo to Zaha, simple. I'd do that, mate. I just can't wrap my head around captaincy. I might do spinning and pick one. Fair enough. I mean, look, they're all good options this week. Sorry, not Zaha. I keep talking about him. Salah, Kane, and Haaland. But, yeah, I mean, I'm just going for Haaland right now. Isaac or Mitrovic. If you want something for the next 3 or 4 game weeks, I'd go for Isaac. But long term, for me, it's Mitrovic. I think he scores more goals and gets more points. So many options in the forward this year. It's good to see, isn't it? And it gives us a bit of a conundrum. We start to divert away from the template a little bit and get another forward in finally. Henderson or Sanchez? For me, Sanchez. Is Mitrovic that good? He is. You can check earlier in the stream. We talked about his stats, also in the transfer tips. 4.98 XG in 5 games, 8 big chances. Also, not just the stats, the eye test. He's always in those positions. He's looked incredible and he's great in the air. I think he's a great choice. Walker or Trippier, Sinchenko? Trippier. Nico and Diaz for Saliba and Zaha. I wouldn't get rid of Saliba and Zaha. And this week, would I get rid of Nico and Diaz for those two? No. Salah for Diaz or Zaha for Diaz or well, okay, that's wait. Let me try and make sense of that. I just keep Salah, and that's literally it. Thoughts on Perisic to Estupinian? It's not a bad transfer, but I think there are better options around the same price, such as Dunk. You've also got Trippier for a little bit more, Saliba, etc. Yeah, maybe Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo for captaincy. It's just a Haaland, will he start or not thing. That's really the big debate for me. Stones to Trippier or hold? I'd probably do the move, sorry. Yeah, I'd do it. Do you agree Liverpool's not top 3 team in the Premier League? Well, right now they're not. The table doesn't lie. But I still think on paper, you know, once their players come back like Kanate, Thiago, etc., for me, they're still top 2. And then third, I mean, it's a toss-up. I mean, Chelsea on paper look good, but how are they going to gel? Let's wait and see. Worth taking a -4 to get rid of Perisic for Trippier. Not for a -4. Yeah, you could just start Estupinian, exactly, Danny. I wouldn't take the -4. It's not worth it. So Trent this game week or James this game week? For this game week, I'd go for Trent still. Henderson for Ramsdale until probably game week 9 wildcard. Yeah, that looks good to me, Marco. That looks good. Do you remember how good Isaac played in the Euros? Yes, the real reason why I was skeptical about him, and I still am a little bit, is because of his goal output. You know, really good player, great dribbler, very good in terms of linking up the play. But what is he going to do in terms of goal contributions? And that's why I have gone for Mitrovic over him. Anthony, that's a good team. It's looking good. You've got a good bench as well. Arguably a few benching headaches. I don't think you need to make a transfer this week. And long term, I would get rid of Mendy. You can go for Pope, Henderson, Sanchez, etc. But your team looks really good for me. Thinking in Game Week 7 to do Perisic to Trippier. Yep. And in Game Week 8, remove Gross to random 4.4 and get Mitrovic. I mean, I think Gross is a good, you know, player to have in the next few weeks, but Mitrovic is arguably even better. So it looks fine to me, your transfers. Wildcard Game Week 9? Potentially. Look, it's not set in stone. You could wildcard later in Game Week 12 or early in Game Week 8. There's no right or wrong answer. Sanchez, Sterling and Diaz or Salah, Aronson and Raya on wildcard? Really good question. I would go for Sanchez, Sterling and Diaz right now. Thoughts on Isaac? Like I just said, obviously I recognise you asked this anyway before. I think he's a good player, but I'd be a bit concerned about his goal contributions. Obviously, really impressive performance against Liverpool. Unlucky not to get the brace, but I would prefer Mitrovic around the same price long term. If Haaland enters the game late, do you think he will score? If he gets half an hour, I could see him scoring, but his ceiling will obviously be lower if he's benched. Salah and Gross to Sterling and Maddison after Game Week 8, what do you think? It looks fine, to be fair. That looks good, to be fair. Yeah, both good duos. Let's reassess when we get to that point because I think there's not much to split them. How should I pick this game week? Trent or James? I'd start both, mate. I wouldn't bench any of them. If I had to pick, it'd be Trent. I'd start him. Start Nico over Zinchenko? Yes. Zinchenko hasn't been training with the Arsenal team, so honestly, it's just the way to go. He might not even start against United. Thank you, Abenizir. Hopefully I pronounced it right. Thank you very much. Tony Mitrovic, who do you think is a better forward player? Better player overall, arguably Tony, because of the assist threat and the way he links up the play, but it's really tough to say. Better goal scorer, it's Mitrovic, but both really good. I think it's quite close. I think a lot of Fulham fans will disagree with me there. I mean, you could say either one of them. I'm really impressed by Mitrovic, I have to say. Sell Salah or Kane for Haaland? I'd rather sell Kane and have a midfield structure of 1 premium or 10 million plus at the moment with Sterling. And have Haaland rather than 2 forwards because you've got Isaac, Tony, Mitrovic, Jesus, Nunez, Aubameyang now, who you can also go for instead of Kane. Are we going to get Haaland news before the deadline? Very unlikely, but you never know. Never say never. Hello, Dylan. Would you do Diaz and Rodrigo for James and Zaha? Yes, I would. I would do that. Welcome, Justin from New Zealand. Welcome. Who are your must-have cheapies this week? Must-have cheapies. This week, let's take a quick look at the fixtures. I think Nico Williams is the standout defender, so there's your defender pick. Midfield, let me try to think of one. I think I had one in my head. I think Aronson's a good one in the midfield. And forward line, ooh, you know, Welbeck against Leicester. You know, there's just a shout. You know, it sounds crazy. He's not someone I'd recommend long term, but that's my kind of shout there. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with. All right, so let's go back to this. We're going to answer a few more questions, then wrap up. Remember, we do have the deadline stream tomorrow, so do not worry. We'll be back there as well. Thank you, Dirov. How many transfers do you have before you get minus points? You have up to 2 free transfers. Obviously, it depends on if you've used transfers before. You can save up to 2. If you make free transfers, then you'll take a -4 hit. But if you only had 1 free transfer and you made 2, then it will be a -4 hit. And with every extra transfer, you incur an extra -4. Tuchel's finished. I only trust Kante, Koulibaly, Silva and James in the current squad. Yeah, I mean, the thing with Aubameyang is he has the connection with Tuchel and he played probably his best football under him. But Aubameyang will only offer you goals, really. And even at his best at Arsenal, in the big games like against City, I know he did really well in the FA Cup semi-final, but he struggles with the physicality. He's not great in the air despite being 6'2", and he's not strong. You know, he can't really hold on to the ball and the ball bounces off him. Not a great dribbler. However, Aubameyang gets you goals. That is, you know, undeniable. And I think he will get goals for Chelsea. He'll get more than Lukaku and the others did. Will he be the Aubameyang of old? Maybe not, but I see him being a decent signing in the short term. But yeah, another problem potentially for future managers. Sinistera, not a bad shout, but I prefer Aronson for a bit cheaper. Yeah, I think Sweden will qualify for the future World Cups, though, that's for sure. And it just shows how difficult it is to qualify, even in Europe, where there are some easy teams as well. Who are you captaining? It's Haaland right now. The deadline stream, as usual, will probably be around 9 a.m. UK time. Harrison or Uwe Veltman this week? Yes, I would do that. Rodrigo replacement? It'd be Zaha, Sagar. Will Isaac start? Yes, I believe so, Marco. What do you think of Harrison as a midfield option? Around 6 million and below, he's one of the best. I do prefer Gross and arguably Aronson, although I'm a bit mixed on that. But he's one of the very best at that price and below. Did Alba lose his speed? Not completely, but he has lost a big portion of it. Yeah, you know, he's still relatively quick, but nowhere near as quick as he used to be. Start Ward over Ramsdale. Like I said, United, I wouldn't do that. I'd start Ramsdale, but I don't expect a clean sheet from either of them. Start Saliba or Jensen. I would start Jensen. Nico to start ahead of Estupinian. Yes, I'd do that. Should I swap Kane for Haaland? This is the thing, not this week, maybe next week in Gameweek 7 when they face each other. -4 Saka and Rodrigo to Martinelli and Zaha, or -8 Saka, Rodrigo, Archer to Martinelli, Isaac Mitrovic and midfielder worth 5.2. I'd actually rather do the -4 Mickey. I'd do Martinelli and Zaha. Just bear in mind Arsenal's fixtures do turn very soon. Also on Trent captain, probably the best defender to captain this week. But I still prefer the forwards and the midfielders. Would you recommend to me upgrade Meslier? Yes, I would go to Sanchez, Henderson or Pope. Take your pick there. If I had to narrow it down, it'd be Sanchez or Pope. Harrison over Veltman this week? Yes, like I said, I would do that. Is the transfer before price rise and falls important? In the long term, it could be a little bit important, but don't think too much about price rises and stuff. The UCL team selection will be out on Sunday. It's already recorded. I need to edit it after this video is done. Aronson or Harrison? Right now, Aronson, but really close. So Aronson, just to be clear. Odegaard injury situation, we don't know yet. Arteta talked today. He hasn't... I think he trained. Is it? Yeah, I think Ramsdale and Odegaard trained. Zinchenko hasn't, but they need to assess them ahead of the game. I think Odegaard will be fine. Rashford or Diaz? Diaz, do you think Arsenal's good enough to play strong sides in the Premier League? Of course they are. The problem with Arsenal now is the lack of midfielders. With Partey, I think they can go toe-to-toe with anyone. Even City, but I think City win the games anyway, because they are by far the best team in the league. Nice show, mate. Thank you very much. Yeah, it just takes a long time, especially when you let it grow. I only let it for a few weeks, and Jesus, it's like a jungle in there. Anyway, Benfica, defender reliable. I mean, not necessarily reliable, but they do have some good fixtures. Matchday 1. Yeah, matchdays 2 to 4 isn't that great, but ultimately gets you ball recovery points. We'll talk more about that in Tuesday. Estupinian or Dunk? Dunk. I like how you spelled Estupinian, by the way. Trossard or McAllister? Easily Trossard. Is it okay not to have Salah and invest that money on strikers and fullbacks? It's okay. I mean, look, if you're not going to captain Salah for 30 million, why go for him? Islam puts Bernardo, Sterling, Martinelli, Gross, Andreas, or Salah, Longstaff, Andreas, Gross, Martinelli for the midfield. My answer would be the first set of players that you said, probably. Let me just double check that. Yeah, so it depends what you're doing, Islam, with your forwards and defenders. If you already have 3 good forwards and a good defence, I would actually go for the second set with Salah. So it just depends. But if you don't really have it, you maybe have a 4-point family and forward, go for Bernardo, Sterling, Martinelli, Gross and Andreas. So hopefully that answers that. Worth doubling over Sanchez and Dunk? I think one's enough. I wouldn't double up. Trippier and Sinistera or James and Aronson? I'd go for James and Aronson on the wild card. Play Rashford or Trippier? I would play Trippier. Start Trippier or Jensen? I would play Trippier. Would you use a wildcard to get James back? Not just for that. It'd take more than that. When will you be wildcarding? It's not set in stone, Nicholas. It could be in Game Week 9. It could be later. Who knows? But it's not set in stone. Is Saint-Maximin starting tomorrow? My gut feeling is yes, but we don't know for sure. Rodrigo to Pascal -4. Cucurella to Saliba and Mitrovic when fixtures turn. Yes, Rodrigo to Pascal, even for a -4, is worth it. Cucurella to Saliba is something to do next week, not now. And Mitrovic, yeah. I mean, I got him in right now. I think Game Week 7 isn't a bad, time to have him. But yeah. Is wildcarding for only 6 different players a good idea? It's not a bad idea, to be fair. It also depends on the quality of players you're bringing in. And do you think they're worthwhile upgrades in the long term? Remember, we get unlimited transfers heading into Game Week 17 when the World Cup happens. So, yeah, if you are happy with those players you're bringing in and your squad for the next 10 Game Weeks or so, it's fine. Mitrovic next game week is a good buy. Yes, I think he can do well against Chelsea in the West London derby. Jesus or Tony or Isaac or Mitrovic. Honestly, Mitrovic, despite the fixtures. Pope and Aronson or Henderson and Gross. Pope and Aronson, but it's quite close actually, yeah. Best Newcastle midfielder. Saint-Maximin. Yeah, that would be my pick. If I had to pick a midfielder, it would be Saint-Maximin, but he is not my favourite overall. Yeah, we're very close. Thank you to everyone. Let's get this stream to over 200 likes. We're very, very close. We're literally 12 likes away. So keep smashing the like button and the subscribe button. We're very close to 13,000 subscribers as well. And we're going to be wrapping up now. So Kulusevski or Mitrovic to start. To start, it would be Kulusevski if I had to pick one. How about this front three in UCL Fantasy? Lewandowski, Benzema, Haaland. I mean, it's exceptional, but what about your midfield and defence? We'll talk more about that in the deadline stream. And also think about other things such as who plays on this Tuesday and the Wednesday. That could be an issue later on, and if you don't know what I mean, you'll find out on Sunday. Zaha or Silva? Zaha. Zaha or Diaz? Zaha. Thank you, Deceptive Banana, very knowledgeable. Just a treat watching you answer all the questions. Thank you, mate. I appreciate your comments, even though I do slightly disagree. Which team do you think is best in the world currently? Man City or Paris Saint-Germain? That is my answer. Best replacement for Neto, around the same price, sorry, it would be Aronson. Yes, sorry, no, on screen it's a wildcard draft. The best wildcard team for me, that's quite affordable. This is my team, and we'll talk more about it tomorrow. Kulusevski or Mitrovic, like I said, I'd go for Kulusevski. Start Harrison, Gross, Nico Williams or Estupinian, pick 2. Up to you, mate, but I'd go for Harrison and Gross. James or Trippier? James long term. Also Ward-Prowse. He's the best Southampton option. He's the most consistent, but I prefer other options around the same price, so I wouldn't go for him. Yeah, of course, Wei saying. It's just the stream does get very busy. I don't try to ignore anyone. I try to go for every question. Should I sub out Son or wait until after Fulham? Probably wait until after Fulham, but there is a good chance he's benched, so it's a risk either way. Like I said, Bruno, I'd go for James. Bayern and Real Madrid? Not for me. I think I'd still go for those two right now. Sancho, good punt. Still not for me. I'd be a bit cautious with United assets. Tony over Mitrovic, both great options. My preference is Mitrovic long term. If you're looking to wildcard in Game Week 9, I'd go for Tony in that case. We'll say maximum play. Look, mate, I can't tell you that for sure. I'm just giving you my opinion. My gut feeling is that he will, but it just depends if he's fit or not. Best defender 4.4. I'd just rather go to Nico Williams at that price point, to be honest. But if you really want someone to start in, week out at 4.4, your answer is going to be Fofana. Thank you, Deceptive Banana, for becoming a differential. That's another channel membership today. Thank you very much to you. And also, I think it was Anav who also became a member. I'll also shout you out tomorrow. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's just a wildcard team that I would do right now. But honestly, my preference would be to wait a few more weeks and then do it. Thank you once again for the shave, what's it called, compliment. Perisic or Ben White to start? This is the problem. If Perisic starts, he's obviously the better option, but I don't think he will. I'd probably go for Ben White in that case. Will Saint-Maximin start, or should I sell him? Honestly, if you have a decent, player to cover on your bench, I would just keep Saint-Maximin, and you can just start. But long term, I would sell him. I'm not a big fan of him, despite the good fixtures coming up. Thank you, Marvin, for the shout out. Thank you, Z-Man. Fofana or Saliba? Saliba. Captain Salah or KDB? I'd captain Salah this week. Thank you for your kind words, Dan. Thank you very much. Like I just said, I can't tell you for sure. My gut feeling, so what I'm thinking is that he will start, but we don't know. He might not be fit. If he's not fit, he's not going to start, and we don't know that. What are your thoughts about Alba to Chelsea as an Arsenal fan? I'm not that worried. I think he'll do a decent job there, but he has tailed off. There's a clear difference between the last year or so. He did a good job at Barcelona, to be fair, but in the Premier League, he really struggled. Let's wait and see how he does, but Chelsea's attack in general is dysfunctional. I want to see how he kind of blends in with Sterling. They're both a bit similar in terms of the positions they occupy and the way they play. So it'll be very interesting to see. I think at 9 million, he could be really good value, though, but there's better options, I think, elsewhere. Thank you to everyone. We're going to be covering more questions tomorrow in the stream. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel and smash the like button. Let's get this video to over 200 likes. And we're very, very close to 13,000. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. And you can also check all the links in the description below, including the channel memberships and the Patrons. Thank you very much to Deceptive Banana and also to Anav, I believe it was, who have become channel members today. And to all the channel members already, as well as the patrons, thank you very much. You can also join the Discord server and the FPL League. So if I haven't been able to go through your question, I do apologize. We'll go for it tomorrow in the deadline stream. So be sure to tune in 9 a.m. around that time, UK time. So yeah, just in the build up for that 11 a.m. deadline. So take care. I wish you all the best for Game Week 6 and the rest of the season. And I'll see you next time.